Let me adjust this a little bit, and there we go. Welcome to the drama-free true crime destination. Welcome to Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, and welcome to Saturday night's main event. I'm Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. So good to have everybody in my house on this evening. And I know there's a lot of true crime live streams going on right now, and I'm glad that you chosen to spend your Saturday evening with me. Feels good. First off, I want to take time to thank everyone all the supporters of the Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. I've said it time and time again. You are the reason why this thing runs like it does. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you. I love you from the bottom of my heart to the moon and back. All right, we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna dig right in like we normally do. If it was earlier in the day, we are going to start with our missing persons cases first. First up, we have Mayushi Baghat. Take a look at the pictures on your screen, ladies and gentlemen. You have three photos. One is no, actually, all of them are her. All of them are current. Here's all the details on Mayushi real quick. She goes under the aliases under Mayushi Vikas Baghat. Spelled different ways though, but still the same thing. Born on July 12th, 1994. She was born in India. She has black hair, brown eyes, and at the time of her disappearance stood about 5 feet 10 inches, weighed between 150 and 160 pounds with a medium build. She speaks English, Hindi, and Urdu. She has friends in the South Plainfield, New Jersey area. Here's your details. Mayushi Baghat was last seen in the evening hours of April 29th, 2019, leaving her apartment in Jersey City, New Jersey. She was last seen wearing colorful pajama pants and a black t-shirt. Baghat was reported missing by her family on May 1st, 2019. She was attending New York Institute of Technology in New York City, and she was here in the United States on an F1 student visa. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $10,000 for information leading to the location or recovery of Mayushi Baghat and the identification, arrest, and conviction of the person responsible. So, you know what to do from here. If you have any information on Mayushi's whereabouts, you're asked to get in contact with the FBI field office in Newark, New Jersey. You're asked to call 911. Get in contact with the FBI's toll-free tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-225-5324, or you can submit your tip anonymously at tips.fbi.gov. Do any of everything I just mentioned, but the one thing you don't want to do is hesitate. The longer you hesitate, that's information that could be useful to bringing Mayushi alive and home safe. We have one other now. We're going to hide Mayushi for right now. We're going to go to Tabitha Danielle Tuders. Tabitha Danielle Tuders. Now, take a look at both of these pictures. The one on the left is when the one on the left here, and the one on the right is age progressed to about 19 years. Tabitha's been missing since April 29th of 2003. Here's that information. This is coming from the FBI field office in Memphis, Tennessee. Tabitha was born on February 15th, 1990 in Nashville, Tennessee. She has sandy blonde hair with blue eyes. At the time of her disappearance, she stood about 5 feet 1 inch, weighed around 100 pounds. She has a birthmark on her stomach and a scar on her finger, and both of her ears are pierced. Here's the details on Tabitha's disappearance. She was last seen early in the morning of April 29, 2003, at her residence in Nashville, Tennessee. She left the house on her way to board the school bus, but never got on the bus and did not arrive at the school. She has not been seen nor heard since at that time. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $50,000 for information leading to the recovery of Tabitha Tuders and the prosecution of the persons responsible for her disappearance. All right. So there you go again. $50,000 reward, and you guys could be the key to bringing her home safe. So, if you have any information on Tabitha's whereabouts, again, you're asked to call 911. You're asked to contact the FBI field office in Newark, New Jersey. You can get in contact with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-843-5678. The FBI's toll-free tip line is available, 1-800-CALL-FBI, 1-800-225-5324. Again, you can submit your tip anonymously at tips.fbi.gov. Any information you have could be the difference in how soon we bring Tabitha home safe and sound. So remember, if you see something, say something. That way we can do something. All right. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and get down to business here. We are going to get everything set and prepared. We are going to go through our week in true crime and legal. And we open up with a case out of St. Petersburg, Florida, where a man was arrested after he allegedly shot his wife and then chased the ambulance that was transporting her to a local hospital. 28-year-old Devin Hansen allegedly shot Yasmin Grivalva. Hang on, let me give you a look at what I'm looking at. Yeah, 28-year-old Devin Hansen allegedly shot 35-year-old Yasmin Grivalva during an argument while visiting relatives on April 17th. That's according to the St. Petersburg PD. The couple was visiting from out of state, according to police. When emergency vehicles arrived for Grivalva, police said Hansen had already fled in a black Cadillac CTS. An officer rode with Grivalva as she was transported to Orlando Health Bayfront. As you can see from this picture here that I'm gonna try to stretch out and let you get a look at, get a good look at the Cadillac CTS. Okay, there you go. It's on the right hand side. That's the black Cadillac CTS that Hansen was allegedly driving. Police said Hansen then began chasing the ambulance in the Cadillac on the interstate while nearby officers began to pursue him. After the chase, police said the Cadillac crashed into some large landscaping rocks in a residential area. Hansen was arrested at the scene. Grivalva was later pronounced dead at the hospital. Hansen is charged with first-degree murder, fleeing and eluding, and misdemeanor domestic battery. all I can say to that is, if the case was, if the case is so predicated on domestic issues, and he was gonna go take it to that extreme, I mean, sure, someone's gonna say easy for you to say you haven't had that kind of a problem. Maybe not, but I'm smart enough to know when to walk away. I mean, come on, what's it worth to you? This guy is being brought up on first degree murder charges. Is it really that worth it? Moving onward. The next story I'm bringing up made my week. This story made my week until another story, and it really made my week. But let's go to this one. Ooh, I love this. Despite his attempts to skip his sentencing, just as he avoided appearing for the entirety of his murder trial, a judge has ruled that Adam Montgomery must appear in person to learn his fate. Montgomery was convicted in February of beating his 5-year-old daughter Harmony to death. After her death, he admitted to putting her body into a duffel bag and a cooler and hiding it in both a walk-in refrigerator and a ceiling vent. I'm gonna go ahead and take you to Ted Rollins of TV as he breaks down what the whole deal is with Adam Montgomery.
Let's turn our attention to New Hampshire, where a judge has ruled that convicted killer Adam Montgomery is going to have to be present for his upcoming sentencing hearing. This comes after the judge allowed him to sit out most of his trial. He faces life in prison for the murder of his 5-year-old daughter Harmony and concealing her body for months. Montgomery was there for jury selection, but then decided he'd rather not sit and listen to all that horrible evidence against him during trial, and he wasn't even there when the verdict was read.
As to charge ID 202-7112C, charging the defendant, Adam Montgomery, with the crime of second-degree murder. Do you find the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
You say that he's guilty, Mr. Foreperson?
That's correct.
So say you all, ladies and gentlemen of the jury?
Now, after the verdict, Harmony's biological mother, Crystal Sorey, spoke about Adam's absence and her hopes that he will be there for sentencing.
We didn't show. I'm not surprised. I knew you wouldn't. But we are hoping to have him there for the sentencing. So we can face him, you know. It's only right. He didn't show up to anything, so, you know, it's only right that he shows up to find out how long he's in it. You know? And if you think it would be one good thing for her, that's not where she is. That's always going to be a hope of mine, but I know we're on to finding her on our own.
Where would you be looking?
The Romney Marsh area.
Why do you feel that area is so strong?
I just know him. He's so facetious that he would put her in one of the biggest, most difficult places to look. And that's just in my gut.
All right, that sentencing hearing scheduled for next month, May 9th, 1 o'clock Eastern. We can watch it right here, of course, on Court TV. Philip Debate with us. Philip, the judge said you got to be here, dude, to hear your sentence. It was odd that he was able to sit out his trial, or am I off base? We just don't see it very often.
Believe it or not, it comes up more often that you know, a defendant absolutely has a constitutional right to be present during his own criminal trial, but he can also waive his presence. And by the way, he doesn't have to expressly do it. He can do it through his misconduct and his misdeeds in open court. If he's carrying on and acting like a fool, the judge can deem him to have absented himself and proceed in his absence. However, the rules change in sentencing. The court can force him to be present when judge is ultimately rendered. And that rule exists for a couple of reasons. Number one, you have to make sure under the law that you have the right person who is being convicted to prison. Second of all, in most states, in their state constitution and in their bodies of statutory law, victims and victims' representatives have the right to confront a defendant and the court and explain the impact that the crime had on them and their loved ones. So he needs to be there to hear it. If he refuses, the judge can issue an extraction order. And what that means is the custodial officials at the jail where he's housed will physically bring him to court. If he starts resisting, they will bodily remove him from his jail cell and force him onto a transport bus or into a van and physically bring him into court. I've seen it where inmates double down, they dig in, and they just absolutely refuse to cooperate, and they have 4 or 5, big strapping burly bailiffs bringing the guy on a gurney into court strapped down so he can hear the judgment. I'm not going to say it goes on every day, but it's common enough where courts have rules in place on how to deal with it, and so do the arresting agencies. They have the equipment, and oftentimes they even have a camcorder going so you can see in real time how a defendant is behaving, and certainly it relieves the custodial officers of any liability should the inmate file a civil rights lawsuit later. But at the end of the day, they're performing a lawful duty in honoring a court order of extraction to bring the guy into court. And we'll see what happens. Hopefully he doesn't resist, because frankly it could get ugly.
Yeah, it could be like a Hannibal Lecter-y thing,
yeah,
with a mask and rock.
Man, oh man! First off, my apologies for only showing you part of the video. I slipped up. Let's just put it that way. Second of all, now better yet, let me get a better reaction to that. Good. Basically, what that means is, come May 9th, that coward, Adam Montgomery, and yes, I've been calling him a coward all this time, and I will continue to call him a coward until he is actually sentenced. That coward, Adam Montgomery, will have to stand in front of a judge to get his sentence and hear his own book being read about him for what he did to Little Harmony. And I can't wait. I can't wait. This guy deserves the book to be thrown at him. Read him like a New York Times bestseller, judge, and then drop the hammer. That's what I'm looking forward to. He deserves every last bit of it. And Harmony Montgomery indeed does deserve justice. Moving onward. Oh, but wait. You know what? This is not just about what I think. This is about what you think too. So, in the comments here, in the community tab, in the comments when this video is complete, let me know what you think. Let me know what you think, and drop it in, because because I know there are others aside from yours truly who believe deep down, my God, this guy has it coming. Let me know what you're feeling. All right. Next article up. This is I mean, I know I'm in total agreement about fathers and sons bonding, but this is not what I had in mind. Authorities say a Florida man. This is out of Brevard County, Florida. Authorities say a Florida man is responsible for the murder of his wife and accuses his son of helping to cover it up. Amber Estep was reported missing on January 19th by her mother. That day, Brian Estep told Brevard County deputies he last saw his wife on January 16th following an argument in their vehicle. According to the court documents obtained by Court TV, Brian said the argument began when Amber disclosed she had been having multiple affairs with several men. At one point, he claimed Amber slapped him after he called her up. Yeah, you guys use your imagination. I won't repeat the word here. And demanded to be let out of the truck on the side of the highway. He claimed he didn't try to contact her so she could have space and assumed she was at her mother's home. Just hours after Brian spoke to deputies, his pickup truck was found engulfed in flames in a wooded area. Deputies found Brian's son, 18-year-old Lane Estep, at the scene. Lane claimed he drove his father's truck to the field to ride his ATV. He told deputies the truck randomly caught fire due to a recall. Investigators later determined it had been doused in an accelerant and set on fire. The next day, Amber's body was found on the side of a roadway. An autopsy noted multiple gunshot wounds to Amber's neck and face, along with a blunt force injury to her head and a fractured left arm. Investigators used Amber's cell phone data to pinpoint her last known location, which led them to another wooded area where human blood and projectiles from a firearm were found. In the weeks following Amber's death, Brian and Lane moved to West Virginia. Authorities continued their investigation and ultimately placed Brian's truck within the proximity of where Amber's body was located. On March 28th, Brian was arrested on charges of first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm and tampering with evidence related to a capital offense. Last week, authorities announced Lane had also been arrested in the case. An affidavit accuses Lane of helping to destroy evidence by setting his father's truck on fire. Lane is charged with arson in the first degree, accessory after the fact, and tampering with evidence, according to jail records. Like I said, Nana, you said the Montgomery is being sentenced, and the fact that he has to be there is coming on the day after your birthday. That's your birthday wish? Then let me go ahead and wish you an early happy birthday to you. I hope and I pray that the biggest thing on your birthday wish list is that Adam Montgomery gets the maximum. It's only right that this is the kind of justice that Harmony deserves. Anyway, getting back to the article I was just covering. Like I said at the beginning, I'm all for father and son bonding. But that, ladies and gentlemen, is just ridiculous. This is just ridiculous. You're gonna kill your girlfriend because of you're gonna kill your wife just because she made a startling admission like that. Let her go if she don't want you no more. Period. It's common sense. And then on top of it, your son's gonna cover for you? Really? Set your truck on fire. And now he's up on arson charges? Really? Meanwhile, Nana's Dragonfly is still talking about Harmony, and I don't blame her. She says that this little girl deserves justice. Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you any more than that. Okay, moving onward. Next. Oh, we have a bit of a verdict watch in the border migrant murder trial. Arizona versus George Allen Kelly. And I'm gonna just go right ahead. And I'm gonna take you right to Julie Grant as we get this quick bombshell of a verdict.
Before we turn to a break in the show, we want to share with you the very latest information on the case against defendant George Kelly. So this guy is accused of murder for the fatal shooting of an undocumented immigrant, but he claimed that he acted in self-defense. The jury deliberations began in the case last week, but they couldn't reach a unanimous decision. And on Monday, the judge declared a mistrial.
Based upon the jury's inability to reach a verdict on any count, the court orders that a mistrial, that this case is a mistrial. The court will set a status hearing for next Monday on the court's usual long motion calendar for 1:30 to allow the state to take a look at the situation and decide whether or not it wishes to ask the court to reset the matter for trial.
So right now, Kelly just wants to go home, and we're going to continue updating you on his case. We'll wait and see whether the state chooses to try him again.
Thanks for that, Julie. And when we get that information, we'll find out together whether George Kelly will be tried again on charges of first-degree murder. We're going back into an Idaho courtroom, and we're going to cover Bryan Kohberger and his defense team. The question of whether they can continue with their jury survey. All right, stand by. We got this thing covered for you right now.
Right now, we're turning to the state of Idaho, where this morning we've got some brand new developments in the case against defendant Bryan Kohberger. The judge has now ruled that Kohberger's defense team can resume the phone surveys of potential jurors in the case. This after prosecutors raised the issue, saying that the questioning of these prospective jurors violates the judge's gag order and could prejudice the people who could be called to serve as jurors once the case goes to trial. But in this ruling, the judge said the survey does not violate his gag order and that most of the questions included information already publicly available through court documents. We know Kohberger is facing 4 murder charges in connection with the November 2022 stabbing deaths of Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, and Kaylee. I'm sorry. Let me start again. I got mixed up with what I was reading and what I was seeing on the screen. We've got Ethan Chapin, Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogan, and Xana Kernodle. Got all of that out. And look at their beautiful faces on the TV. It's important to remember that with everything going on with him, these 4 people are what this case is about. It is Crime Victims' Rights Week in the United States. And will these 4 beautiful young people get justice? We'll see. We know we heard some big news recently with what the Kohberger alibi is. Apparently, he was out there gazing all by himself when those 4 beautiful children were being slaughtered. Let's talk about that. I have a tremendous guest on the program. He's a retired DEA supervisory special agent, owns his own consulting and training firm now. Michael T. Wilhite Sr. is with us. Good morning, Michael. Nice to see you. I want to show you some of what the defense filed with their notice of alibi. Take a look at this. They say Mr. Kohberger was out driving in the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, as he often did, to hike and run and or to see the moon and the stars. So he's out in his Kohberger mobile, alone, driving around, The motion goes on to say he's taking pictures of the stars. Nobody's with him. Nobody else is stargazing, and apparently he's got some photos of the sky to produce, so that's all fine and good. But, Michael, during the hour that police say the murders occurred, during the window of time where they say those children were killed, Kohberger shuts his phone off and then powers it back up a little later. Your thoughts on whether this stargazing alibi is going to make any sense for the jury?
Julie, I'm sure he was stargazing. I'm sure he was roaming all by himself in dark 30 of the night or early in the morning, because he was looking for a victim. He was looking for his victims. He found his victims, shut the phone off, and, obviously that's where we're at now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's got this alibi where no one else can be called as a witness, where the digital footprint supports it only in part, only in what happened before the homicides and after the homicides, but right in that window, we don't have it. Michael, do you think he would have been better off saying nothing? I mean, and I'm not criticizing the defense. I mean, look, they're trying to save his life. I get that this is a death penalty case. They're going to do everything they can. But I'm just wondering if this is where to put the effort. If there isn't a witness, something digital video that can say, look, during these hours, it would have been impossible for him to commit the crime. Maybe just don't address that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, obviously, he's not aware. He's not familiar with Oliver North. Senator, I do not recall. I'm taking the fifth. So obviously, he doesn't. He's stargazing, all right. He wants to be a star. He wants to make his presence known. He wants the attention, the media attention, and this case has truly gotten a lot of media attention. And the reality is, and one reason, because living on a campus in this college community, you're living in a bubble. So everybody sees what everybody knows what everybody's doing. And he was stargazing. He was searching he was on the prowl, like a predator. He's on the prowl for his victim, for his prey. And unfortunately he found 4 young, beautiful people to enact his evilness on.
I like what you said there about stargazing, looking for those beautiful victims, those kids who were totally innocent. They're in their house, living their best lives as college kids. And then here we go with this now. The judge's ruling, Michael, I want to turn to this about the defense team is calling up people that, could be summoned for jury duty, asking them questions. Apparently the judge is saying, look, this doesn't violate the gag order. These are things that are in the public record, things we've heard in open court. I've got a clip I want to play for you now where they talk about some of those questions on the record. Let's watch.
We had a person come to us who had received one of these calls, had actually reported the call, and so our office prepared a transcript, and that was attached as Exhibit B, I believe, to our motion for order prohibiting contact. In addition to generic questions about the criminal justice system, here's where we get to things that concern the state immensely. Question: have you read, seen, or heard if Brian Kohberger was arrested at his parents' home in Pennsylvania? Question: have you read, seen, or heard if police found a knife sheath on the bed next to one of the victims? Question: have you read, seen, or heard that DNA found on the knife sheath was later matched to Brian Kohberger? Question: have you read, seen, or heard if Brian Kohberger owned the same type of car recorded on video driving in the neighborhood where the killings occurred? Have you read, seen, or heard if the cell phone tower data showed that Brian Kohberger made several trips near the victim's home in the month before the killing? Have you read, seen, or heard if the university students in Moscow and their parents lived in fear until Brian Kohberger was arrested for the murders? Have you read, seen, or heard if Brian Kohberger said that he was out driving alone on the night of the murders? Have you read, seen, or heard if Brian Kohberger stalked one of the victims? Have you read, seen, or heard if Brian Kohberger had followed one of the victims on social media? Your Honor, there is absolutely no question but that those questions are disseminating by means of communication evidence expected to be presented, evidence that could be or would be inadmissible at trial. And I will say there are a number of these representations placed in the form of a question, but representations of fact that are not true or that would not be offered at trial.
Okay, so there's the prosecutor handling this, going through those questions. Michael, at the end of the day, do you think this is the right ruling by the court to say, you know what, go ahead, survey these people. This is stuff that's out there anyways, not in violation of the gag order?
Both sides have a point. Some of those questions, based on your footage there, some of these questions and allegedly are out in the public, yes. But the same token, from what I can tell from my experience, that does violate the gag order. So that's going to be tough. Not only that, you're in a, like I mentioned before, you're in a fishbowl in that community, in that college community. So again, if anyone hasn't heard about this case, heard those questions, heard the response to those questions, or those allegedly alluding to those things, have been living under a rock somewhere, and unfortunately, that can prejudice the jury, because you're going to find it's going to be tough finding 12 people in that community that doesn't have a strong opinion about what happened.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's a great point, Michael. You know, I've often thought about this, whether it's going to serve everybody better if they move this trial somewhere else. We know everybody's heard things about it. You'd have to be living on another planet to not. But as you know, hearing about it isn't the standard. It's being fair. Can someone be fair, even having consumed news? Court TV, a shameless plug, you know, all of that. Can you just be fair and impartial? So, like you said, this community, it's tiny. People have felt this. It's changed their lives. So it may be best for everyone, especially if the state is confident they can get a conviction so this doesn't come back on appeal. We know they're pursuing a capital case here against Bryan Kohberger.
Yep, that's exactly what's happening there. The judge is going to allow this to allow it to go through. They're going to the defense is going to be able to serve jurors while they are determined to get the right amount of people seated to bring Kohberger to trial in the stabbing deaths of Ethan Chapin, Xana Kernodle, Madison Mogen, and Kaylee Gonsalves. Going to continue to follow up on this particular case as we get closer and closer to the trial date. And remember this the prosecutors, they will seek the death penalty if he's convicted. So things are going to be crazy as we're going forward. And then, as Dragonfly just said a second ago, and I highlighted it just moments ago, she said she hadn't seen this, and this is great information. Yeah, because they're doing everything they can to make sure that Bryan Kohberger gets a fair shake. Now, I'm not the one to say whether he can or not, but that's what the defense is going for at this moment. In another devastating case, in the death of Sade Robinson. Court documents say that the blood found in the suspect's home was not that of Sade. Blood found in the home of a Wisconsin man accused of murdering and dismembering Sade Robinson does not match the victim, according to an updated criminal complaint obtained by Court TV. 33-year-old Maxwell Robinson is charged with first-degree intentional homicide, mutilating a corpse, and arson in the death of 19-year-old Robinson. Robinson was reported missing April 1st after not showing up for work. Her car was found torched the next day and in the days following. authorities located severed human remains believed to belong to Robinson throughout the area. On April 12th, authorities announced charges against Anderson. Court documents detailed that Anderson and Robinson had met for dinner the day she disappeared, and eyewitnesses placed them leaving at the restaurant together. At the time the charges were brought against Anderson, investigators noted blood found on the bedding and a wall leading to the basement of his home. In updated criminal complaint notes, complainant knows the preliminary testing of the blood was done by the Wisconsin State Crime Lab, and that the preliminary DNA analysis supports the conclusion that there is no support for inclusion of Robinson's DNA in any of the blood or swabs tested, and in some of those swabs, Robinson's DNA is excluded. Anderson was due in court Monday for a preliminary hearing, but waived his right. According to Scripps News Milwaukee, prosecutor Vance Curzon said at the hearing, it indicates that the preliminary DNA supports the conclusion that there is no support for inclusion of Robinson's DNA in the swabs that have been tested. The state did not clarify whose blood it was. Anderson has pleaded not guilty to the charges he faces, and his case is due back in court May 16th for a scheduling conference. I would love to find out who was the one who actually did. If not Maxwell Anderson, then who? And the blood that's already been ruled out not to be Sade's. If not hers, then whose? And is Maxwell Robinson behind that all? Lots of questions, so few answers. But as we keep digging, we'll get to the bottom of it. All right. Next up, the Karen Reed case. Once again, I gotta go through this, so I can make sure my name and Bethea'S Byte Reloaded stays in the clear of the Karen Reed supporters. Okay? Having said that, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw. This is Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, the drama-free true crime destination. I and this channel neither support nor are we against Karen Reed. This channel is here to report the news as it is gathered on her case all the way through her trial. I've picked no sides. I have no skin in the game. When I get the information, I bring it to the viewer. Once I do that, the viewer can come up with their own conclusion. There. I've said it. Now let's go to the article. First off, we got the issue of the buffer zone. Protesters fighting the buffer zone outside of Karen Reed's murder trial.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. What do we have? Oh, yeah. It is almost game time. Karen Reed, accused of murdering her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe. They say she ran him over, but she says she's being set up by police. Matt Johnson, Court TV crime and justice correspondent, is there and has the latest for us tonight.
Hey, Vinny, the jury expected to be sworn in on Monday. Earlier, I asked the defendant, Karen Reed, what she thought about the jury pool as she was leaving the courthouse. Take a listen.
Karen, how are you feeling about jury selection?
Well, Matt, well.
Defendant Karen Reed leaving the court after day 5 of jury selection. The day started with 19 jurors and ended with the same number after 5 were replaced for hardship due to the length of the trial. Those 19 will report back on Monday. That's when 16 jurors will be selected to hear the case. Reed is accused of running over her Boston police officer boyfriend, John O'Keefe, and leaving him to die in the snow. Her defense claims that she's being framed in a police cover-up. Tomorrow, the judge will take up some big motions, which could include these. Commonwealth's motion to admit the defendant's statements made to the media, evidence of motive and nature of their relationship, prohibiting reference to any federal investigation, and a motion to keep the defense from calling the DA as a witness. Judge Coones also needs to decide which courtroom the trial will take place after the defense argued some members of the jury won't be able to see the face of the witness testifying.
In order to advance to the merits of this case without further delay or collateral distraction, I will consider moving the trial across the hall to courtroom 25. Where, at least according to the opinion expressed by Mr. Yannetti's affidavit, the sightlines are preferable.
And that motions hearing expected to start at 10 a.m. tomorrow morning at the courthouse here behind me. That's the very latest from Dedham, Massachusetts. I'll send it back to you, Vinny.
Matt Johnson, we're going up there next week, folks. And let me tell you, you want the trial in that courtroom. That's the historic Sacco and Manzetti courtroom. No air conditioning. Temperatures are going to get warm there. Witnesses, when they're being cross-examined, are going to be sweating. I've seen it. I saw Dr. Dirk Greinader on the stand sweating like this and then got convicted.
Now, guys, the judges touched over about the court being moved into a smaller courtroom. Let me take you to that bit of issue right now.
We're in that very small courtroom now at your request, so we don't need monitors on the tables. I don't have the time to physically go see how this all looks. Ms. Gilman's here. Perhaps she can speak with your audiovisual person, and then you can all make a presentation to me. But again, this, months ago would have been much better.
Well, I understand the court's concern. This is extremely modest, and it's not going to take a whole lot of presentation. If the court doesn't want to monitor, the court says, I don't want to monitor.
I don't know if I want monitors on those tables so close to the jury.
That's fine. Then.
All right, the breaking news banner comes out because you heard it, the judge there saying they're going to move the Karen Reed trial to a smaller courtroom because of this defense request saying that the sight lines for jurors in this courtroom that they've been using for over 100 years won't be sufficient for Karen Reed. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to move it to a smaller courtroom, add some logistical issues. Part of what was a very long and very important motion hearing this morning. This is sort of the last time for all the parties to get the rules of the road straight before opening statements on Monday. With a front row seat during the hearing, Court TV Crime and Justice correspondent Matt Johnson. He's outside the courthouse now. Let's start with that, what we just heard. Looks like there's going to be a little move to a smaller courtroom. What does that mean?
Right, Ted, this was a big bombshell just outside of Boston on the eve of this trial kicking off on Monday with those opening statements. So basically, there was a lot of chatter in the gallery. Everyone looking at each other when the judge, who wasn't addressing the matter before the court, that motion from the defense of the jury view and some jury members who may not be able to see the face of the witness, the defense saying that that was a violation of amendment rights of the defendant, Karen Reed, 6th and 14th Amendment for her right to face-to-face, confrontation during questioning. So today, the judge said that that because there is not a lot of room for IT equipment, she let it slip out that they don't have the room in where this court is going to be trying the case, which is in a much smaller courtroom, which is what the Commonwealth suggested, moving to this courtroom, Ted, because of the jury question that the defense was claiming. This is a big deal because this only means that the families of John O'Keefe and Karen Reed and a few members of the media will be allowed to be in there, no members of the public.
No members of the public, no members of the Free Karen Reed Army. Yeah, one would wonder what the defense would rather, you know, a gallery full of people that seem to support a defendant, which we all know by sitting through trials is very important because juries, they get they know everyone in that courtroom by the end of a long trial. But there you go. They're going to be in the smaller courtroom. They won't have that army of supporters with them. Let's talk about the motions as well today. Several things were discussed. What stood out to you on, as you said, the eve of trial?
Yeah, you know, we still don't have an answer on some of the major motions, whether or not her blood alcohol level will be presented to the jury. There's a decision still pending on that, and whether or not the district attorney of Norfolk County can be called as a defense witness. That's going to be decided at a later time as well. But one of the major issues and motions that was decided on today that stood out to us and our team was about the statements made by the defendant, Karen Reed, outside of court, not only to the media, which will be played in part, but also to the state trooper after the grand jury indictment when she was rearrested and they added the second-degree murder charge. Well, she made a statement when she was on body camera, and that's coming in. Let's play the statement, and then let's play what the judge said about it.
So, initially, your arrest was on probable cause out of the district court, okay? So the charges that you were arrested on initially were out of district court, out of Stoughton District. That's where the arraignment was. It was district level charges. Today, grand jury indicted you on these charges, which is second-degree murder, vehicular homicide, and leaving the scene of a death, okay? So those are the charges that grand jury indicted you on. So now you're being charged and will be arraigned in Superior Court, Norfolk County Superior Court in Devon. Okay? So
bail doesn't apply anymore?
Typically, I'm not. So we don't set a bail. But typically, once murder comes into play, people don't get bailed out.
So it's not manslaughter anymore. Is that the difference?
That's correct. It's a higher degree of taking a life. Okay? So that's the charges that you're being charged with now. And you were indicted by grand jury.
Okay, you're aware he was beaten up by Brian and Colin Albert. I mean, we're all in on the same joke, right? My tail light was cracked and junk was pulverized.
Okay, you need to abide by the rights that were afforded to you, okay? So you can talk if you want. If you want to tell us what happened, that's fine. We'll listen, but you were ready to do your rights, okay? And I'm sure he's going to do it again. All right. If you want to talk to us, you want to give us a story, definitely. We'll take it.
No, I mean, I know you already know the story, so I don't need to.
I don't think we need the video. Much of it is just looking at their computer. So the video part will be out. You don't want it in, correct?
That's correct. We had asked for the audio only.
Yeah. Okay, so the audio only, but it needs some context. Clearly voluntary, clearly unsolicited. How do you want to work that out? Can it be that this occurred at the Milton State Police Barracks on a particular date? Because if you can't work it out, then I'll decide it.
We don't object that the statements were made at the Milton State Police Barracks as they were.
Audio only.
So the statements made to the police trooper when she knew that she could remain silent, that is going to be allowed audio only during the trial. part of her media interviews that she gave to different outlets, that will be allowed. And then also statements overheard by John O'Keefe's niece and nephew about the relationship and possibly the deterioration of that relationship right before his death. That will be allowed admitted in as well. And they're going to be allowed to sit in the gallery after their testimony, Ted.
Both members of both families there, John O'Keefe's family and Karen Reed's family there today for this pivotal hearing, along with Matt. And now it's going to be jockeying for seats, obviously, with this news that they're going to the smaller courtroom. Matt will be there. We know that. He'll have a front row seat. Matt, thank you. As always, Matt will be with us throughout the day here on Court TV as we ramp up our coverage, getting ready for Monday's opening statements. Ooh, it's going to be quite the trial. Jack Rice, you're... let's talk about this idea that now they're in the smaller courtroom. The defense said, hey, we don't like the sight lines for jurors. Okay, well, guess what? We're going to go to a shoebox, and your peeps aren't going to be allowed to be there. What would you rather have, an army of supporters sitting behind you, or sight lines for juror 9, 10, and 11?
That's a tough call, isn't it, right? You file this under, be careful what you ask for. Because in this case, they fought a particular fight, and I don't think they really thought through what the ramifications are. I think of Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard. You think about what that jury was looking at. They were looking at them, yes, but they were looking at everything. And in this particular case, you're trying to show the broader picture of what's going on in the community right now and how the world feels somewhat outraged and up in the air about this. You want the jury to see that at every single level. And so the idea that they lost on this issue, well, I should say they won on this issue.
It might be a loss.
They lost on this issue.
I mean, look at this.
I think it's a huge deal.
Look at this shot. Look at this shot right here. So this is the view from juror number 9. Guess what? They're staring at Karen Reed supporters. I mean, perfect. It's like this is the best view ever.
Could you imagine that view of juror number 9 and 10, they're seeing him say something, and you see 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 spectators be outraged and confused by what that person just said. What does that teach you? It teaches you to be outraged and confused. You're trying to get to this jury to move them, and so you always move them however you can, whether it's through scintillating cross-examination, through direct examination, through what the courtroom feels like, through tension, and sometimes, you're not supposed to, but sometimes it can happen through those spectators in the room, and they can't even help themselves.
Talking about 6 weeks, jurors see everything. By the end of a 5-6 week trial, they know the bailiffs' names, they know everybody in that courtroom, and believe me, they'll know that, wow, this lady's got a ton of support. Holy mackerel.
For some reason, right? Yeah. That's what it is, Ted, right? It's like, why does she have so many supporters? Do you think it's because they like her, or do you think they might actually, and I think this is actually part of the idea, is maybe they know more than we know.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something else going on about this case, and nobody wants to convict somebody who is innocent. And if they have something out there that makes them think,
right,
that's going to give them even more pause.
Yeah, and you don't want to convict someone that you think the general public doesn't want you to for some reason, and even a cop killer. So
so there we have that in regards to the Karen Reed case. Opening statements kick off this Monday, and Court TV is going to be covering it. I'll be keeping an eye on it as well. We're going to move on to a case that's right near my backyard, where a 1-year-old was kidnapped, and the ex-cop who did it basically took himself out to keep himself from getting going to prison or worse. He was accused of killing 2 people, and then when he was found with a fatal gunshot wound to the head. Let's go to Vinny Politan with the updates. Vinny, do the thing.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you for joining us here on Closing Arguments. Big news on a big story. And today it was everywhere. This Amber Alert / manhunt. Little Roman, 1 year old, taken, abducted by his father, 39 years old. His father wanted as a suspect in 2 homicides, indicted in 2 rape cases. There he is, Elias Huser. This guy is a bad man. Bad man. Accused of raping underage girls, making one of them pregnant. That's where Roman came from. Unbelievable background. Well, he was on the run with this child, and now we've got a conclusion. And the good news, the headline, Roman is okay. Let me read the statement from police. At approximately 3 p.m. on Tuesday, April 23rd, the Oregon State Patrol located the subject vehicle driving southbound on Interstate 5 near Eugene, Oregon, and initiated a pursuit. The pursuit ended with OSP reporting that the suspect sustained a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head, with his current condition unknown. The 1-year-old child, Roman Santos, was taken safely into custody. Let me repeat that. The 1-year-old child, Roman Santos, was taken safely into custody by OSP troopers. This is a developing situation. More information will be released at a press conference scheduled for tomorrow, Wednesday, April 24th, 10 a.m. at the West Richland Police Department and the Anoski Community Room. Great news. All right. That's the ending, but how on earth did we get here? And the more you learn, I think the more angry you're going to be about how this all developed. Let's go way back to the fall of 2008, okay? Huser is a nationally ranked wrestler and a senior at Dickinson State University. He is arrested twice in the fall. Allegations of terrorizing people with a knife and criminal trespassing. The charges get dismissed somehow, some way, but he's kicked off of the wrestling team, okay? Flash forward 6 years. He completes basic academy and gets pinned as an officer with the Yakima Police Department in Washington. Flash forward 4 more years. Has his first day on his new assignment, and this is where the trouble really begins. School resource officer for the Washington Hills Middle School, okay? September 20th, 2019, he files an anti-harassment protective order against the 13-year-old he is rumored to be sexually involved with. And if he's sexually involved with a 13-year-old, he's sexually abusing that 13-year-old. She's later expelled, and then he is transferred to a different middle school. This happened after she called his home phone and his wife found out about their alleged relationship. Again, that relationship would be called sexual abuse. December 2019, he and his wife end their marriage for obvious reasons. She was, and this is when they first met, she was reportedly an underage student wrestler that he was coaching when they first met. You following this? This is his wife. They have 2 kids together, 5 and 9. And then in 2020, she filed for a protection order, fearing for herself and the kids. So there's a lot happening here, right? When they met, how old she was, now protective order. Meanwhile, April 12th, 2021, a member of the Yakima Police Internal Affairs Unit describes multiple domestic incidents involving him and his ex-wife. He becomes the subject of an investigation and is placed on paid leave. So the red flags are flying everywhere right now, folks, everywhere. So what happens? What happens? You're being investigated by the police department, so of course, he somehow passes the background checks in February 2022, and is hired as a substitute elementary school teacher for the district. And then he formally separates from the Yakima Police Department. He's booted off the police force because of his conduct, so he somehow passes a background check and becomes a substitute teacher. Unbelievable. Angelica Santos and their baby, take a look. This is the girl, I'm going to say she's 17 when she was killed, and that's little Roman. She was 13 years old when he filed a protective order against her. So what was going on when she was 13? She became pregnant with his baby when she was just 15. On February 3rd, she called the police saying her, Uziar, and her friend had all been drinking together. She woke up to him raping her unconscious 16-year-old friend. And he gets arrested. So his original charges: second-degree rape for the rape of his underage girlfriend's friend, furnishing alcohol to minors, and third-degree rape for getting his underage 15-year-old girlfriend pregnant. He gets released, of course, on a $200,000 bond on the condition that he stay away from underage girls and refrain from drinking. He was scheduled to appear in court for those rape charges, and that's when he snaps and people die. Thank goodness that baby's okay. His wife, ex-wife Amber Rodriguez, was gunned down outside of the elementary school where she worked. This came just days after she filed a custody change for their two children together. A hearing for the custody arrangement had been set for May 14th. So she's shot right outside of the school in front of kids, including their own 9-year-old. So then after this shooting, they go to search the home, and that's where they find his girlfriend dead inside and little Roman nowhere to be found. So these two young women who got involved with this sociopath are now dead. He shot himself. We don't know exactly how he's doing, but unbelievable. Like, I'm seeing red flags everywhere, but somehow, some way, he ended up back inside the school, back as a predator.
I wanted to cut right back in just to offer a little bit more information. According to the article, that who was our? Let me double check my information real quick. The information I wanted to bring to your attention that this man is deceased after the gunshot wound to the head, and the 1-year-old, as Vinny mentioned, is safe, thank heaven. But Elias Huazar is deceased. I don't know what to tell you. What's going on people's minds these days, but so much craziness in the world. That I can tell you that for sure. Moving onward. This was a cold case murder that the dying suspect confessed to. This is out of Charleston, West Virginia. A confession by a suspect in failing health led authorities to what they believe are the remains of a long missing woman and her daughter who were buried in the backyard of a southern West Virginia home. Susan Carter and her daughter Natasha Alex Carter, who you can see on the right hand side of your screen, have not been seen since August 8th of 2000. Authorities announced that they were believed to be the pair's remains Monday at the home of suspect Larry Webb, hours after the man's death. It's kind of a sad day, but also a happy day because I can bring my baby home, Alex Carter's father, Rick Lafferty, said at a news conference Tuesday at State Police Headquarters in South Charleston. Webb, who is in his 80s, suffered a medical episode on Monday at the Mount Olive Correctional Complex, where he was being held without bond after having been arrested earlier this month in connection with the girl's death. Webb was pronounced dead at a hospital 6 hours before the remains were discovered. In a bit of poetic ending that not even I could write, Raleigh County Prosecutor Ben Hatfield said at a news conference. Webb's confession earlier this month led authorities to find the bodies, which have been sent to the state medical examiner's office for autopsies. That confession came after Webb was confronted with mounting evidence, according and FBI Supervisory Special Agent Tony Rosa said a bullet was extracted from a bedroom wall during a search of Webb's home about 18 months ago. DNA tests eventually confirmed blood on the bullet belonged to Alex Carter. At the time they went missing, 41-year-old Susan Carter was in a contentious custody battle with Lafferty and had told him he would never see his 10-year-old daughter again, according to an FBI flyer from back then. Carter and her daughter were living in Webb's house when they disappeared. Hatfield said Webb told investigators that he shot Susan Carter after discovering some money was missing from the home and an argument ensued. It was a detailed, undeniable, unconflicted confession, Hatfield said. Webb indicated that he believed he had to shoot Alex Carter to avoid detection for having killed Susan Carter. Webb wrapped the bodies in bed linens and placed them in the basement that night. Over the next 2 nights, Webb dug a shallow grave in the woods on his property, burying the mother and daughter in their clothes. Those details are consistent with what we found over the course of the last 24 hours, Hatfield said. A landscaper who lived nearby showed up with a crew and 2 excavators to assist investigators in digging for the bodies, turning the soil over the entire backyard to a depth of about 4.5 feet. Before he died, Webb was brought to the excavation site, but his mind is not what it used to be, Rouse said. He couldn't pinpoint the location, and with surgical precision, these 2 operators worked those excavators and literally went row by row. Monday was the 3rd day of digging. The way the crime was detailed to us by Larry Webb and the condition we found the bodies in confirmed for us with a high degree of certainty that the 2 bodies found are those of Susan and Alex Carter. The FBI announced a renewed push for answers in the case in 2021. Police executed search warrants at Webb's home in 2022 and 2023. During one of those searches, Webb told news outlets that he did not know what had happened to the girl and did not know when he last saw her. I don't remember, Webb said. I have dementia. I can't say exactly. Webb was indicted in last October on a murder charge in the girl's disappearance, but his incarceration was delayed until this month due to his deteriorating health. He was transferred from the Southern Regional Jail to a medical wing at Mount Olive last week. Well, I can't say justice served, but what I can say, for all intents and purposes, that the case is now closed. The bodies have been recovered, and the person responsible is going to get his due punishment in the afterlife. I just pray now that Rafferty now can have some kind of peace, knowing that his ex-wife and his daughter have been found. Next up on Saturday night's main event, we got a woman charged with murder in a crash that killed 2 siblings. I'm going to take you right now to the Honorable Judge Ashley Wilcott for this one.
First, new developments out of Michigan, where a woman faces charges in a tragic birthday party crash that killed 2 children and injured a number of others. 66-year-old Marcella Chittister faced her arraignment on Tuesday and the raw emotions of the victims' families. She is charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of operating while intoxicated causing death, and 4 counts of OWI causing serious injury. Our Scripps affiliate in Detroit has the latest on what's being called a very unusual arraignment.
I had to see my deceased niece and nephew. I had to see their very last moment.
Heartbreaking moments inside a Monroe County courtroom. The judge letting families and friends of the victims address the court and the defendant.
She took my grandbaby from us.
There's no justifying what she did to my family. There's none.
The 66-year-old driver, Marcella Chittister, accused of driving her car under the influence into a boat club hosting a children's birthday party, killing 2 young siblings, 8-year-old Alana Phillips and 4-year-old Zane Phillips. Several others were injured, including the siblings' older brother and mother.
I had to be the one to tell my sister her babies were gone when they removed her ventilator yesterday. She said, "How am I supposed to live without my babies?"
The emotions on display, extremely rare for an arraignment hearing, usually very straightforward.
Have you ever seen an arraignment like that, where there's testimony like that?
No, I haven't. The arraignment actually felt more like a sentencing hearing.
Adam Wright is a law professor at the University of Detroit Mercy Law School.
The Michigan Constitution provides a right to victims to know about the arraignment and to attend any kind of hearing. But the decision about whether they speak is entirely up to the judge.
It's very rare, and but this is a different type of case.
Former Wayne County Judge Craig Strong says he has let victims testify during arraignments before and feels it's important in certain cases.
Normally it's done at the time of sentence, but because of the circumstances of this case, with the number of victims, the children that were killed, the sadness and grief of the families, I think the judge showed a lot of compassion in allowing them to share their feelings.
In this case, the judge allowed multiple family members in person and over Zoom to testify, leading to some interruptions and back and forth with the defense attorney who claimed his client wasn't drunk but had a seizure.
How do you keep those? Not hit no break or turn.
Because sometimes you have a seizure and your legs freezes up.
Your Honor, there is no indication whatsoever in any of the evidence that we have uncovered in this case that the defendant suffered from a seizure at the time of this incident. In fact, quite the opposite.
Before we go, I want to share today's thought from the bench, a horrific set of circumstances. Arraignment, just as a reminder, it's the first step of the criminal process. It's the first formal court appearance where a person goes to court when they're facing criminal charges. And typically, this is what you can expect to happen in an arraignment. The judge reads on the record the charges that the defendant faces. The judge also generally tells the defendant what the maximum amount of time might be in jail, as well as resulting fines. Sometimes there's bail set, and often the future court dates are laid out at that hearing. And in Michigan, as in some other states, the defendant will go over their rights, including the right to have a jury trial, the right to have counsel, the right to call witnesses and cross-examine witnesses that testify against him. Now, in this case, as you just heard, 2 young children died. They were only 8 and 4 years old. They were at a birthday party where they obviously should be safe and sound. Their older brother and their mother were injured as well. You just heard the mother had to be told after her ventilator was removed that 2 of her babies were gone. So no surprise, no wonder that the judge decided to let the victim's family members speak. Is it unusual? Yes. Is it allowed? Yes. Why? Because in Michigan, the judge has the discretion to allow victims to speak at arraignment, to share their emotions, how they are feeling. That decision rests squarely on the shoulders of the judge, and unless it is an abuse of discretion, it is appropriately allowed. Some may say, though, it's troublesome that in spite of the horrific tragedy, family is allowed to openly blame in court a person who's presumed innocent of a crime. At this stage, there's that presumption of innocence. I want to know what you think. Please let us know. Was letting the family speak a compassionate act that should have been allowed before this defendant's been convicted of a crime? Or rather, does it unfairly and traumatize a defendant who's presumed innocent?
Not only can you tweet those comments out to Judge Ashley at Ashley Court TV, but you can drop your comments here on the same issue here at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. Let me know what you're thinking. Should the family have been able to speak at the arraignment? I'd love to hear from you. In the meantime, she was arraigned on Tuesday on 8 charges, including 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of OWI causing death, and 4 counts of OWI causing serious injury. Given a $1.5 million bond with conditions, including not operating a motor vehicle, substance abuse monitoring, and a GPS tether. We'll see how that goes down as the case goes forward. Now we go to Georgia for this next story. Magnet fishing dredges up new evidence in a Georgia couple's killing. This is in McRae and Helena, Georgia. Someone using a magnet to fish for metal objects in a Georgia creek pulled up a rifle as well as some lost belongings of a couple found slain in that same area more than 9 years ago. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation say the driver's licenses, credit cards, and other items dragged from Horse Creek in rural Taillefer County are new evidence in a murder case that's still awaiting trial. A citizen who was magnet fishing in the creek on April 14th discovered a .22 caliber rifle, according to the GBI in a news release. The unnamed person returned to the same spot 2 days later and made another find, a bag containing a cell phone, a pair of driver's licenses, and credit cards. The agency says the licenses and credit cards belong to Bud and June Runyon. The couple was robbed and fatally shot before their bodies were discovered off a county road in January 2015. Authorities say the couple from Marietta, just north of Atlanta, made the 3-hour drive to Taillefer County to meet someone offering to sell Bud Runyon a 1966 Mustang. A few days later, investigators arrested Ronnie Adrian J. Towns on charges of armed robbery and murder. They say Towns lured the couple to Telfair County by replying to an online ad that 69-year-old Bud Runyon had posted seeking a classic car, though Towns didn't own such a vehicle. Georgia courts threw out Towns' first indictment over problems with how the grand jury was selected, a prolonged legal battle that concluded in 2019. Towns was indicted for a second time in the killings in 2020, and the case was delayed again by the COVID-19 pandemic. He has pled not guilty. Court proceedings have also likely been slowed by prosecutors' decision to seek the death penalty, which requires extra pre-trial legal steps. Towns' defense attorney, Franklin Hogue, did not immediately return phone and email messages seeking comment Tuesday. District Attorney Tim Vaughn of the Okanee Judicial Court, which includes Telfair County, said prosecutors are preparing for Towns' trial to start as soon as August, though no date has been set. He said the newly discovered evidence should prove useful. It was a good case already, Vaughn said, but this makes it an even better case. He said the rifle from the creek is the same caliber as the gun that killed the Runyons, though investigators are still trying to determine whether it's the weapon used in the crime. The items found in the creek also led investigators to obtain warrants to search a Telfair County home, where they recovered additional evidence. The GBI statement gave no further details, and Vaughn declined to comment on what was found. Hopefully, we'll get more information. We'll get before the trial gets in, and we'll find out exactly when that trial will start. Next up, in a rare occurrence, the attorney for the defendant is going to testify at Courtney Clenny's trial. Oh, actually, he already did. And let's go to that information right now.
Yes, in my heart. What man? But my boyfriend is dying. Man.
Yeah, you should go. Because you just killed your boyfriend. Yeah, you did.
We are charging 26-year-old Courtney Taylor Clenny with one count of second-degree murder in Christian's death.
This morning, we're spotlighting some brand new developments in the OnlyFans model homicide case. Courtney Clenny and her mom and dad appeared to be in good spirits in court on Tuesday. There they are arguing, there she is rather, arguing with her attorneys. Let me just start over. They were all in court. Her attorneys were arguing over whether or not Clenny and her parents had legal rights to access her boyfriend Christian Abumseli's laptop that was recovered at the crime scene. Prosecutors have said no, but Courtney Clenny's defense attorneys have said yes, that it was a shared laptop. Now look at this. Look who's in the witness box there. The biggest moment of the hearing was when one of her criminal defense attorneys took the stand, saying why the discussions about accessing the laptop were protected by attorney-client privilege. Take a look.
Ms. Courtney Clenny was vaporated because she was in a very bad place mentally, and so she was vaporated. The parents then flew in. I can't remember exactly the date they arrived, but I met with them in my office in Coral Gables in person again on, I think, April 6th or 7th. I'd have to go back to my text messages, but that is when we all decided. I had very specific clear memories of speaking to them that this, based upon the media attention that was almost immediate, that they're going to need representation as well to navigate through this.
Was it your understanding that you were their counsel from that date?
Yes.
Are you familiar with the substance of the messages that are discussed in the warrant defenses B?
Those are the ones with respect to the laptop?
Yes.
Yes, I'm
Were those confidential communications?
Yes.
Were they communications to you and your clients?
Yes.
All right, and we've got that attorney you just saw there, Frank Prieto, and Courtney Clenny's other attorney, Sabrina Puglisi, joining us live on the program this morning to talk about this. Oh my, okay, so we've got Courtney's other attorney questioning you, Frank, calling you as a witness to explain all of this. What a mess. Talk to us, please, about what you went through yesterday and whether there's any resolution this morning, please.
Well, Julie, again, thanks for having us to discuss these very interesting issues that you've highlighted here. Yeah, things have taken a turn for the bizarre. If you would have told me at the beginning of this case I would be testifying in a hearing about my attorney-client relationship, I would have said no way. It's bizarre, and I think this highlights the issues that the prosecution has done some things here that are not above board.
So the government here is trying to make this accusation that Courtney, your client, and her mom and dad, also your clients, that was what really the sum and substance of this was, whether that relationship existed at the time, were accessing this laptop. Sabrina, you've come on the show before. We've talked about this. You've said from the outset that the laptop was shared. And as I understand the evidence that came out through a detective, they're not disputing that. They don't have any evidence to show that it just belonged to him. Am I right?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct, Julie. I mean, really, it was so interesting, the testimony yesterday, because so much of it was, oh, well, we assume, we infer. Nothing was concrete. Nobody said, we have this specific evidence. We know it was his. We know she didn't have access to it. We know she didn't know what the password was. And they make a big thing about the password. As soon as she was in jail, right? And as soon as she knew it was a numeric password, she gave the very first one that worked because she knows his password and she has access to his communications, just like he had with hers, which is really common for any spouse or anybody in a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm. Certainly. Right, Sabrina. And so I guess what stunned me was if the government's bringing these allegations, then where's the evidence to support their contention that the laptop didn't belong to her? Because if it did belong to her and she's able to access it and it was shared, then I don't see why time's being wasted calling Frank to the stand and making him testify. So Frank, you guys also you've got this motion to dismiss going on and the vindictive prosecution motion. Any rulings from the court on these yet?
Not yet. Yesterday's hearing, Julie, went until I think 7:30 p.m. And the court is very busy, and we understand that. But there's been a lot of delays caused by this, what we consider to be prosecutorial misconduct. So the court has been inundated with motions on both cases now, and I think that yesterday was just a preview of the conduct that the state attorney's office has engaged in that we believe is improper. And again, you hit it on the head. The evidence in that case is so weak. The Florida bar allows us to investigate cases as defense lawyers, and we did the right thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so for anybody watching at home, it's almost like now Courtney Clenny is dealing with two problems with two different sets of attorneys here because of what the state has done, bringing this case with the laptop against her and her parents. And so because of you being made a witness, essentially, you and Sabrina are only representing her on this homicide case. Speaking of, Sabrina, do we have a trial date yet? I know the last time we chatted, it wasn't set. What's the latest, if you know, please?
We still don't, and unfortunately, with all of what's going on right now, it really delays everything, right? Now we have to wait for the judge's ruling, and then we have to wait on the vindictive prosecution. And one of the reasons is because, the primary reason is, we absolutely are going to be filing a motion to recuse the state attorney's office. He had access to all of our work product, all of our privileged communications. There's no question about it. They admit there was a relationship with an attorney and a client in this case, and that was all our work product. How can that same state attorney's office represent the state of Florida? And so that all just delays everything, unfortunately, while she sits in jail.
Right. This is really key. And just to kind of let it sink in here, It seems to me that, you know, when they went through this laptop, what you're saying is they got confidential communications, things that they shouldn't have had their eyes on. And so now that it's looked at by these prosecutors, it needs to go to a different independent agency that hasn't seen, you know, your confidential communications. And to be clear, Frank, I think at the heart of all this was whether there was anything nefarious in the communications about erasing evidence, anything like that. After watching the hearing yesterday, it was very clear they have none of that. Am I right?
Julia, 100% you're correct. And just to clarify, the invasion of the defense camp and the reading of the confidential exchange of information of work product and attorney-client privilege occurred when they served an iCloud warrant that returned the chats between myself, Ms. Puglisi, our investigator, my paralegal, the whole defense team, and her parents, which are clients. So they retrieved that information, and that's those texts that you exactly just pointed out, that there is nothing nefarious. In fact, we went above and beyond. In the hearing, you could hear the testimony that I said, don't access it. We have to clone it to preserve it as evidence. Property receipts were given to Miss Clenny, Deborah Clenny, and a property receipt on the back end to my IT expert, Mr. Haas. Why? Chain of custody, to preserve it. We did the right thing, and I think that came out in yesterday's hearing.
Yeah, most definitely, it sure did. Yes, you did, and yes, you both are right. This case needs to go to the Attorney General's office ASAP. I've said it before, I'll say it again. The best thing Courtney Clenny has going for it is the two of you, Sabrina Puglisi, Frank Prieto. Thank you both so much for sharing all this morning. Keep us posted on the trial date, please.
If there's one thing I can totally agree on so far about this particular case, is that it is in the realm of the bizarre. And when we get more information on Courtney Clenny's trial, you'll get it from me. We're about to start up. I believe opening statements are already underway in this trial. If I can go ahead and highlight this up and drop this in. This is in New Jersey versus Christopher Gregor. Here's a look of what details in this case are.
Look. So guys, this is my mommy and your
You know, a video like that would put you in a good mood if you didn't know the rest of the story. And that's what is so tragic here. That little boy, little Corey Micchiolo, Jersey kid, that's my home state. With his mom, he's happy. The problem is, he spent time with his father, Christopher Gregor. And he's accused of murdering that child. Not just murdering him, but abusing him before murdering him. Julie Grant has this story tonight.
So guys, this is my mommy.
Police say 6-year-old Corey Micchiolo died at the hands of his own father. Christopher Gregor is charged with first-degree murder. Gregor is accused of forcing Corey to run on a treadmill, calling him too fat as he increased the speed, causing Corey to fall repeatedly. Investigators say video from Gregor's apartment gym shows the incident. Later, he brought Corey to the hospital, where he died from blunt impact injuries.
We all know what happened. If it was an accident, everything would be different.
Court documents say Gregor later Googled, "Can your phone be tracked in airplane mode?" He also searched how long after an autopsy to file charges.
We don't have the full context of what was being searched, why it was being searched. It could be completely innocent.
It's just not something a parent does. You don't leave your son at the hospital while he's dying.
Investigators say he fled the state after Corey's death. Months later, he was charged with endangering the welfare of a child. On March 9th, 2022, he was arrested for murder and pleaded not guilty. Corey's mom, Bree Michelot, says she made many reports of physical abuse to New Jersey Child Protective Services after Gregor came into Corey's life in 2019.
DCP&P should have done their jobs and we wouldn't be here right now.
She says she has faith in the prosecutors to bring justice for her son.
It's just so hard knowing what we know. I can basically use my mind and I can picture, it's horrible, but I just, from the autopsy report and knowing how Chris is and just, I can tell what happened that day. It's their jobs to prove it, and hopefully they can.
All right, get ready, folks. New Jersey versus Christopher Gregor. Jury selection continues Thursday. Opening statement is now expected this Friday. This Friday. Let's bring back in our think tank, Daryl Cohen, Meg Strick, and Josh Schiffer. So with us, Mom knew. She knew. She tried family service, and nobody's listening to her.
No. What did Mom do? Did she get away from him? No. Did she complain? Apparently so. That's not enough. If you're living with somebody, and that child of yours is being abused, you get that child out of there. That mom is complicit, and there's no excuse.
No way. No way. No way.
I saw those videos earlier today. I was thinking the exact same thing. You have to have responsibility for your baby. And I disagree with you.
If he has hesitation, if she's trying to get sole custody.
But it was in this apartment building and all this other stuff where he's having exercise. Don't put your kid with that man. Period. There was a history of abuse. Do not put your kid with him.
I think that
I'm gonna stop. I'm stopping the video right there just to simply say how much I agree with two of these members of the think tank. Parents. I'm talking to moms and dads. If you have this feeling in your gut that your child is being abused, you have a God-given animalistic right to protect your child by getting him or her out of that situation. Anything less than your child, you're likely never to see nor hear from again. And then that's the start of your own life sentence. Something to think about.
It's the culmination. Multiple bads can exist at the same time. And we've got multiple bads here. The defendant, man, horrified. I can't imagine. What a ridiculous crime to commit. But then Mom certainly doesn't escape liability either.
No way. No way. No way. Not buying it. Not buying it. Let me read this statement from the defense attorney. In this case, Mario Gallucci. He's an aggressive criminal defense attorney, very successful. The death of Corey is tragic, but not murder. Unfortunately, Corey died from natural causes. Blunt force natural causes? Okay. When Christopher came into Corey's life, he was a low-functioning student who was placed in special classes to deal with his extreme learning, social, and emotional disabilities. All of this changed when Christopher learned of his existence and became the parent he was missing. It should be noted that the Michiolos were arrested and convicted for attacking the Gregor family, as well as making threats against me and my family. This is who these people truly are, and it will become apparent that Brianna and Rebecca Micchiolo were not capable of raising a child or goldfish, for that matter. I mean, strong words from the defense here.
Who cares? That's just inappropriate. I cannot believe a defense attorney would do that while the case is still pending.
This is the statement from the defense attorney.
I know it is. It's inappropriate. We're sitting there talking about other people doing trial speaking, you know, and having gag orders and whatnot is not appropriate to do that. Let the case be tried in the courtroom, not in the media.
At the same time, you've got some good burden shifting. If you just watched Mom speak, that's not the demeanor I would necessarily expect when you're dealing with the brutal, tragic, horrific murder of a little kid.
How do we get to natural, and here we are back to natural causes. Like, all right, Tammy Daybell, all right, you want to say something was going on, but there wasn't? Like, he's 6 years old. Come on, come on.
There's also a video from the gym.
There's no natural cause here. No. The approximate cause of death was that evil man who's being tried for murder, but Mom does not escape culpability.
In what way? I'm trying to figure out in what way. Anything. In what way?
She did nothing.
I called CPS is not enough. I made complaints is not enough if your child is being physically abused.
Are we blaming a victim here tonight? Is that what's going on? This mom is without her child.
No, the victim is that child that's dead.
Yeah.
We're blaming Mom in addition to the man who committed that
And in
murder.
what way will that manifest itself during this trial, if at all?
There needs to be an inquiry into the accountability of what Mom was, or more importantly, wasn't doing
Exactly.
to protect these kids.
After the gym.
Well, is that going to be a part of this trial? I mean, this trial, I hear it here from Mario Gallucci that it's natural causes. It's going to be cause of death. They're not pointing the finger at someone else.
But there's no way it's natural causes. Again, we have video.
But that's what, wait, this is Mario Gallucci from Staten Island, representing the accused murderer here, is saying it's not murder, it's not homicide, it's natural.
He's
right, that's what I'm saying.
He is not the trier of fact. He is not the judge. He is not the jury. He is doing what he should do in a way that he should not do.
But I've got three people here blaming the mother for what happened.
No, we're not blaming the mother. We're making sure
I
the
would never blame the
mother for what happened here.
If something happens to my child, if something's happening, I would have killed somebody before I let them hurt my child.
Exactly.
One of my
She's
3-year-olds.
part of the problem is what we're saying. She's saying, oh, CPS should have done something. What we're saying is that she needed to have protected her kid, period.
It's not pie, it's accountability. There's a lot that can go around, and she deserves a big fat serving.
Let the record reflect. I do not agree with what they're saying tonight.
And for the first time in a long time, let the record reflect that I totally disagree with my main man, 50 Grand Vinny Politan. Before any CPS or any other agency gets involved in protecting your child, parents, it's your responsibility. First and foremost, priority number one, your kid. If your child is being abused, you're the one that has to be the one to stop them. Not CPS, not any other agency, you. You're the one that has to get your child out of that situation. If you don't, there's a problem. Anyway, the opening statements starts April 30th. Moving onward. Kaitlyn, Coones, and Jonathon Jones. They were in court earlier this week. Coones and Jones are both charged with killing Jones' mother.
All right, we do want to pause testimony here to bring you new developments in the murdered mom plot case out of Ohio. An Ohio teenager and her adult boyfriend were in court for separate hearings this morning. 18-year-old Kaitlyn Coones and 34-year-old Jonathon Jones are accused of killing his mother in April of last year. Now, they were arrested the following month while on the run in Mexico. Well, today in court, the judge addressed a motion filed by Coones' attorneys for a mental evaluation. They claim Coones is a victim of Jones and is experiencing what they call trauma bonding, where a victim develops a sense of affection, empathy, or sympathy for their abuser. Now, Coones' attorney told the judge they are waiting for the doctor to conduct that evaluation. And in Jones's hearing, his attorneys also requested an in-person mental evaluation, which the judge granted. And they filed a motion to suppress his interview with FBI agents in El Paso, Texas. The judge later addressed whether the trials for Jones and Coones should be severed.
Is this a case where the trial can be held together, or is this a case where there's going to be some burden issues that would require separate trials? Is this a situation where one defendant may be testifying in the trial for another defendant? I need to understand those things because I'm looking at the long-term planning of getting this case to trial.
So all of the above could potentially happen in this case, Judge. We did talk about it a little bit, and I think what we came to the best answer would be having 2 juries present, if we could do that in courtroom 5. It will kind of depend on if the offer extended to Ms. Coones is accepted, if she would cooperate at Jonathon Jones' trial, or vice versa. So we are, as you stated, kind of in a waiting period right now. We are thinking ahead as well and working through the coming motions.
All right, the judge did not make a ruling today, but did set the next pretrial hearing date for June 5th.
And in that time, we will find out whether or not those cases will be severed, or either whether Coones, Jones, or both are mentally competent to stand trial. In the Scott Peterson case, the district attorney is opposing the defense motion for DNA testing. Could this be the difference in Peterson getting another trial, or is conviction holding up? Hang on, guys. Got a little bit of an audio problem. Hang on.
News out of California we're following as well, as the DA in Stanislaus County is seeking to stop the brand new DNA testing in the Scott Peterson case. Now, as you know, the LA Innocence Project, not affiliated with the Innocence Project. This is a local group, different from the one founded by attorney Barry Scheck. But they want to test more than a dozen different items of evidence in the case. They're trying to exonerate Scott Peterson, who appeared in court last month. The DA, though, says the evidence has either been already tested, litigated, or is unrelated, or the burden has not been met to retest them. Now, Peterson's serving life in prison, as you know, for the murders of his wife, Lacey, and his unborn son, Connor. The LA Innocence Project recently taking up the case. They say his rights were violated during his trial. We're going to wait to hear what a judge has to say about this new filing.
And when we get information on that, we will get it to you, and we'll find out eventually whether Scott Peterson's case will be headed back to trial once more. Next up, something, let's put it this way. Anyone in the true crime community has dealt with gruesome cases before. Whether there's a teen involved, adult involved, there's been some gruesome cases. This one ranks right up there. Police say a teen killed her mother and shot her stepdad before inviting her friend over. A judge has ordered a teenage girl accused of murdering her mother and shooting her stepfather to undergo a mental health examination before her case moves forward. 15-year-old Carly Gregg is charged with murder and attempted murder after allegedly killing her mother in cold blood and then lying in wait to shoot her stepfather. In court documents reviewed by Court TV, detectives with the Rankin County Sheriff's Office said they were initially called to the family's home in Brandon, that's in Mississippi, on March 19th for a report of a shooting. When officers arrived, they found Ashley Smiley dead and her husband, Heath Smiley, with a gunshot wound to the shoulder. Heath first told first responders that when he arrived home, he found his wife on the floor in Carly's room, and when he turned around, Carly was standing in the kitchen with a handgun. Heath said Greg fired approximately 3 times, hitting him once. When Heath wrestled the gun away from the teenager, she allegedly fled out of the home's back door and jumped over a fence before she was caught approximately half a mile away. At Greg's preliminary hearing, investigator Zachary Cotton testified that video from inside the home showed her moving around the house, hiding her hands behind her back. Cotton said that Ashley had been shot twice in the head, and after that, the shooting Greg could be seen walking through the house and playing with her dogs. After shooting her mother, Greg allegedly used her mother's phone to text her stepfather to ask when he would be home, and used her own phone to text a friend saying she had an emergency and needed the friend to come over. When the friend arrived, the detective testified, Carly asked her if she had ever seen a dead body before. She said no and proceeded to show her deceased mother. Greg told Brooke that she had 3 shots for her mom and that she's got 3 more for her stepdad, 2 to the head and 1 to the chest. The friend then went outside as Greg waited for Heath to return. The judge found probable cause for the charges to stand and ordered a psychological evaluation to be done of Greg, both to determine if she's competent to stand trial, as well as to do an analysis of her mental condition at the time of the shootings. Greg's attorney unsuccessfully petitioned her $1 million bond to be reduced, saying that the teen, who turned 15 on Wednesday, was an exceptional student who had skipped the 4th grade and had no prior criminal history of violence. The victim, Ashley Smiley, was identified as a teacher at Northwest Rankin High School, where she taught algebra. Now, 15-year-old, I would say, I would honestly say she planned it all. Because, come on, she's already decided she had 3 shots for her mom and 3 shots for her dad. 1, 2. She shoots her mom, getting her twice in the head. Then texts her stepdad with her mom's phone, when are you coming home? That's planned. She hides out, waits for a stepfather to discover his wife on the floor, dead, in Carly's room, only to return back to the kitchen, see her waiting there with a handgun. He gets shot at 3 times, getting hit once in the shoulder. I'm sorry, but she knew what she was doing. She knew what she wanted to do, and she knew when she was going to do it. And then on top of that, telling her friend that she has an emergency and wants to come over, then only to end up asking her, have you ever seen a dead body before? Nah, that young lady knew exactly what she was doing. I'm sorry to say. But we'll find out more information on that as the case picks up. Alright, we got another arrest in the God's Misfits case. Yep, there's a 5th person charged in the murders of 2 Kansas women. This is out of Guyman, Oklahoma. Look on the right side of the screen, guys. That's Paul Jeremiah Grice. Oklahoma prosecutors charged a fifth member of an anti-government group on Wednesday with killing and kidnapping two Kansas women. 31-year-old Paul Jeremiah Grice was charged in Texas County with 2 counts of first-degree murder, 2 counts of kidnapping, and conspiracy to commit murder. Grice told an Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation agent that he participated in the killing and burial of 27-year-old Veronica Butler and 39-year-old Jillian Kelly of Hugoton, Kansas, according to an arrest affidavit. Grice is being held without bond at the Texas County Detention Center in Guyman, according to a jail official. Court and jail records don't indicate if Grice has an attorney who can speak on his behalf. 4 others have been charged in connection with the deaths and are being held without bail. 54-year-old Tiffany Adams and her boyfriend, 43-year-old Tad Cullum of Keys, and 50-year-old Cole and 44-year-old Cora Twombly of Texhoma, Oklahoma. Butler and Kelly disappeared March 30th while driving to pick up Butler's 2 children for a birthday party. Adams, who is the children's grandmother, was in a bitter custody dispute with Butler, who was only allowed supervised visits with the children on Saturdays. Kelly was authorized to supervise the visits according to those affidavits. A witness who spoke to Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation agents said all 5 suspects were part of an anti-government group that had a religious affiliation. According to the affidavit, investigators learned the group called themselves God's Misfits and held regular meetings at the home of the Twombleys and another couple. We will find out if that other couple will be charged as well if they had a hand in it. But right now that's 5. We've got 5. Let's see who else is in. We'll see who else is involved as this case moves forward. Next up, a New York's appeals court overturns the 2020 rape conviction of Harvey Weinstein. This was breaking news as of Thursday.
We have some major breaking news to share with you now as New York's highest court has overturned Harvey Weinstein's 2020 rape conviction. A New York appeals court ruled that the judge in the landmark Me Too case prejudiced the former movie mogul with improper rulings, including a decision to let women testify who weren't part of the case. So, what does this mean for Weinstein? Well, he's currently serving a 23-year-long sentence on the New York convictions, but he'll remain in custody since he's been convicted in the rape case in California. So he's been sentenced to do 16 years on that. But what this means is that the court has ordered Weinstein to get a new trial. So this could mean that all of his accusers on that indictment could have to relive all of that trauma all over again if the state decides to retry him. This is a stunning ruling based on what we call, and we know here at Court TV, as prior bad act evidence. Some of those witnesses were not part of the indictment, but their stories and their testimony were allowed in for limited purposes, motive, opportunity, absence of mistake, things like that. And Weinstein's conviction has stood for 4 years. 4 years, and now it's been overturned today. So this is a stunning turn of events and certainly a setback for everyone in the Me Too movement who had advocated so strongly to get justice for everybody who had been wronged and abused and sexually assaulted by Harvey Weinstein. So we'll let you know if we hear anything from the district attorney's office. It's going to be their call if they want to move forward again. But as it stands right now, Harvey Weinstein's rape conviction has been overturned and a new trial has been ordered by New York's highest court.
And this, like Julie just said, this is a stunning decision that that has everyone that followed this case all just shook. We're going to go to an interview with Harvey Weinstein's attorney, where he said that this was a great day for America.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Arthur Aidala, and I am the managing partner of the law firm Aidala, Bertuna, and Kamens. We were part of the trial team, and we were the appellate team. Judge Barry Kamens and Diana Fabi Sampson and myself tried the case alongside Donna Rotuno and Damon Chironis 4 years ago, more or less, right now, in this courtroom right behind us. And at the time of those rulings, from the days I interned with John Esposito in 1980 and when my father worked here in the 60s and 70s, what we knew then was the first words that came out of my mouth to the Court of Appeals, which was, from the bottom of our hearts, from our collective hundreds of years of experience, we knew that Harvey Weinstein did not get a fair trial. And there's a quote from Judith Kaye, who was one of the great leaders of this state. She was the chief of the Court of Appeals of the state of New York. And the essence of it was, there are some people who are very unpopular in our society, but we still have to apply the law fairly to them. And in this courthouse behind us at that trial, the law was not applied fairly to Harvey Weinstein. And what the Court of Appeals, the highest court in the greatest state, in the greatest country, said today, it's over 100 years old. And what the Court of Appeals said, you can't throw out 100 years of legal precedent because someone is unpopular. We compliment the Court of Appeals for having the strength and the courage to do so. We compliment the former Chief Judge of the Court of Appeals, Chief Judge Janet DiFiore, because she's the one who gave us access to the Court of Appeals. It is not often, it is not automatic that a criminal defendant gets access to the Court of Appeals. And Chief Judge DiFiore, who's been a fighter for women's rights throughout the course of her career, stepped up and said, no, there's a problem here that my colleagues on the bench have to examine. And they did examine it. And Judge Jenny Rivera, who has spent her entire career in the law as a professor, as a judge, fighting for women's rights as hard as she possibly can, wrote this decision. And it may sound like it's an exaggeration, but it's not. Today's legal ruling is a great day for America because it instills in us the faith that there is a justice system, even though there's 100 cameras around, that a judge will sit in her chambers and look at the law and look at the precedent without fear of favor and say, I don't care who the defendant is. If it's a former president of the United States or the most storied Hollywood producer of our generation, the law applies to everyone. There was over 100-year precedent that was thrown out by the intermediary court of appellate court. That said the Molyneux ruling, which is allowing people who a defendant is not charged with to come into court and testify. They said it was okay in the Harvey Weinstein case. But today, Judge Jenny Rivera, a real hero for women on this planet, said you can't convict someone based on their entire life and everything that they've done in their life. You can't allow more witnesses to come in and testify against the defendant than the defendant is actually charged with. You can't do that. What Judge Rivera wrote, over a century later, we reaffirm that no person accused of illegality may be judged on proof.
Okay, we need to squeeze it a commercial break. Arthur Aidala on the steps across the street from the courthouse where Harvey Weinstein was convicted, reacting to the state Court of Appeals overturning his conviction. We'll continue our coverage of this when we return. Stay with us as Court TV, your front row seat to justice.
I had to stop it right there, and I agree. And NorCal Jim is in the house. How you doing, man? Still doing sad stuff for the evening, but wanting to pop in, show support, and give a thumbs up. I appreciate that big time. Like I said, like I was saying in this, I had to stop it right there. And I have to agree with Arthur Aidala when he said that you can't throw out 100 years of legal precedent because someone is unpopular, whether it's a former president of the United States or the most powerful movie executive in America. The law applies to everyone, and it ought to. So, like the Karen Reed case, I had no skin in the Harvey Weinstein case. So I hope and pray that this actually does go to another trial, and I want to see justice done right. Next up, a prosecutor is seeking life imprisonment for the mother of Kinsley Welty. Kinsley Welty, as you remember, is the 5-year-old who was killed due to the mom's neglect. Yeah, this is all because of the abuse and neglect of 5-year-old Kinsley Welty. Julie, take it away.
Welcome back to Opening Statements. This morning we're shining a spotlight on the horrible and preventable death of 5-year-old Kinsley Welty. The medical examiner says that she died from malnutrition and neglect. In the probable cause affidavit, her mother, Toni McClure, admitted that she kept Kinsley in a closet, blocked by a dresser, and rarely fed her. Kinsley was found covered with feces, bugs crawling on her head and on her face. She weighed more as a 2.5-year-old than she did as a 5-year-old. This is a stunning and sickening case. And now Kinsley's mother and her mom's boyfriend, Toni McClure, and Ryan Smith are both charged in this case. And the charges are McClure is charged with murder, criminal confinement, and battery. Smith, the charges are a little bit lesser, 3 child neglect offenses and 1 offense of criminal confinement. And let's take a listen to a little more about this case.
Anything that you can say regarding this case?
There was a lot of conversation between both mom and grandma about what was going on with this child and what was the best way to deal with some of these issues. And I think that's the part that's so disheartening, is that nobody stepped in and said, this child needs help. What can we do to try to help this child? And the thing that you consistently see and hear in these conversations is people are concerned about their own well-being. Well, I might get in trouble if someone is aware of this.
Now, McClure was a repeat offender, served some time for child neglect. Kinsley's paternal grandparents say that they had custody of her for a time, but that the Department of Children's Services just kept giving her back to her mother, Toni McClure. We have two very special guests I'm so pleased to have on the show this morning. We have the attorney who is prosecuting this case. He is the chief trial deputy in Marion County, Indiana. Attorney Ryan Mears is on the show, and still with us, the former director of the Department of Family and Children's Services in the state of Georgia, Mr. Tom Rawlings. Great to have you both here. Ryan, I want to begin with you. First of all, thank you for your service and giving us your time coming on the show. Would you share with us what you're able to about little Kinsley Welty, her story, how you have learned that she suffered in the care of her mother and her mother's boyfriend?
Well, I think that's what's so disheartening about this case is that everything we know about Kinsley and her life is that she lived a very difficult life at a very young age. And what we have learned through, literally since she was born is that she suffered at the hands of her parents. And what we are alleging in the probable cause affidavit is that this was a repeated pattern of behavior where this just wasn't one isolated incident or one momentary lapse in judgment, that we had a consistent pattern where she wasn't receiving proper nourishment. We're alleging that in addition to that lack of proper nourishment, she was essentially confined to a closet where she didn't have access to use the restroom. She didn't have access to food. And really, Kinsley suffered for most of her life because the parents and the people that should have been there to protect her, what we are alleging is that not only did they let her down, but they made her circumstances way worse than what it needed to be. And when law enforcement finally got involved, the scene that they arrived to was a 5-year-old child who weighed approximately 20 pounds. And that obviously took place over a significant period of time. And that's why we were in a position to file the charges that we filed against the 3 individuals that were involved.
You have done a fantastic job with this prosecution thus far, Ryan, and thank you for all of that. It's stunning, it's sickening, yet it happened, it's reality. Tom Rawlings, something else the affidavit says is that DCS had numerous investigations into Kinsley's mother, Toni McClure, and they had trouble finding Kinsley. Isn't that a big red flag?
It certainly is, Julie. I mean, if you look at this case, even as far back as 2018, the mother and the actual father of her child had been accused of mistreating her, of neglecting her, of not feeding her. And so DCS had all of these opportunities over a number of years for reports, and I'm not sure why, but it's as if they didn't do what was needed to actually lay eyes on Kinsley. And that's one of the key elements when you're doing an investigation. If you can't lay eyes on the child, see whether or not the child is thriving, see whether or not the child was abused, that's the point at which you call in the court system or you call in law enforcement. You get a sort of a warrant to view the child. And in fact, DCS has, as I understand, been over there the same day that poor little Kinsley died, and they couldn't find her. She was being locked away like Harry Potter in a torture chamber under the stairs.
Isn't that the truth? Tom, I'm so glad you brought that up. That was going to be the next thing I wanted to ask Ryan about. That made my jaw drop when I read that the day she dies, DCS is at the house and just can't locate her. Ryan, what did you think when you saw that?
Well, it certainly raises a lot of questions about what's the proper role of DCS and what affirmative steps should they have taken to try to locate the child. And in this particular case, unfortunately, this was a family that was not a stranger to DCS, who had multiple interactions with DCS. It wasn't just the day that she passed away. There were numerous other opportunities where people could have seen and really been able to take a look at the condition that Kinsley was in. I think the thing that stands out to us is this is something that happened over a prolonged period of time. You don't die from malnourishment and dehydration overnight. This takes some time. And there were multiple intervention points where if people had seen the child, they would have very clearly been able to observe that she was suffering and that she wasn't receiving the proper nutrition or food that she deserved. And so it's not only that day not being able to observe her, but there were multiple other periods of time over the last couple of months where DCS had these opportunities to observe Kinsley, to see what was going on, and to remove her from a situation that ultimately cost her life.
Exactly, Ryan. This is just so sickening. This sweet little girl was failed by so many people. I want to play a clip for you both. This is from Kinsley's paternal grandparents, Trisha and Brian Welty. They're the folks who said that they did have custody of her from time to time, but that DCS kept returning her, reuniting her with her mother. Let's take a look at what she and he shared about little Kinsley.
We don't want any more kids to have to die because of the failure of the system. It's not right. She was in our home, and she was safe, and she was loved, and she was handed back to her abuser.
When she came to us the second time, she was bruised from head to toe. She had clumps
of hair
missing throughout her whole head.
And she was given back.
And she had already tried to starve her to death when she was 3 weeks old. And they gave her back.
Tom Rawlings, this is a tough question. Everybody looking at that wonders just how in the world could this happen? What do you see as an expert in this area? How might this have occurred?
Yeah, Julie, I mean, the problem is that many of our DCS or Child Protective Services workers across the country are young folks who are trying to balance, do we keep the family together because children do better in their own families when they're not being abused, versus do we remove the child? And there is often a bias toward either leaving the child in the home or, in this situation, returning the child to the parent. I think what was missed here was that the law also says that if you have a situation of severe abuse, a situation where abuse is continuing, is going on and on, you don't have to reunify that child with the family. You can terminate parental rights, you can place the child with a forever family, with relatives. There are lots of other options that do not appear to have been explored here.
Excellent points, Tom. Thank you for that. Attorney Ryan Mears, want to go back to you, please. As you're heading up this prosecution, is there any criminal liability you see with little Kinsley's maternal grandmother, her mom's mom, Tony McClure's mother?
And we've actually filed charges against her. And one of the things that when you start this investigation, you kind of start with who are the individuals, who are the adults who had the most immediate access. And then we've kind of expanded beyond there. So in addition to her mother and their mom's boyfriend, we've also charged the grandmother in this case with criminal confinement for her actions. The other thing that we uncovered throughout the course of this investigation is that not all of these events occurred in Marion County. So we're also working with law enforcement partners outside of the county who would have jurisdiction over additional allegations that we believe took place outside of Marion County, which could result in additional charges in different jurisdictions.
Oh, well, that's good to know, Ryan. We're going to keep our eyes and ears open for any more information you can share with us. And at this point, do you intend to join these three co-defendants to go together at them at trial?
I don't think that's going to be possible just because all three individuals gave pretty lengthy statements. And anytime you have those statements, it's nearly impossible to try these cases together.
Sure.
So we do think that these cases will be tried separately. The other complicating factor is we did file life without parole on the mother. We did make that request. And so her case is going to move at a different pace and will have a different procedural posture than the other two cases. So it's unlikely that these cases will be tried together.
I actually kind of wished all three cases were tried together. right now, they're tried in the court of public opinion, mine. And I can say that Tony McClure, Ryan Smith, and Tony McClure's mother, the three of them make me sick. They tear my guts in two. Starving 5-year-old to death. Criminal confinement. What is that? I just said earlier in another case that parents have one priority. Tony McClure, you failed as a mother. Ryan Smith, as a wannabe stepfather, you failed. And Tony McClure, you can go ahead and look to your mom, and you can tell her that Ernest Bethea, the last outlaw, said she failed as a grandmother. And the end result, a 5-year-old is dead because you failed. You failed her. This is another reason why all three of you should get good, long, and hard time behind bars. That's all I got to say about that. In another heinous act, this one is kind of reminiscent of another case we covered back a while back. A Louisiana man killed a woman during a sex act and dismembered her. Does this case give you vibes of one Taylor Shabiznes? This is out of Quachita Parish, Louisiana. Louisiana man killed and dismembered a missing woman in his apartment, according to police. An arrest affidavit in the case against Anthony Pierce Holland Jr., age 29, details how police say he killed 23-year-old Cheryl Turner. Holland is charged with second-degree murder and is being held without bond in Quachita Parish. In January, human remains were found in the Quachita River. A month later, the remains were identified as Turner, who was last seen on New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2023. Law enforcement told Script News Lafayette at the time it was a case they'd never seen before. According to the affidavit, investigators determined Holland and Turner started a relationship using the Text Now app. Holland picked Turner up from her mother's home in New Iberia on January 1st. Her phone stopped transmitting the next day. At the time, her phone was connected to a Wi-Fi network near Holland's West Monroe apartment, according to the affidavit. It also alleges that Holland told investigators he killed Turner during a sex act. After realizing she was dead, he dismembered the body, put it in bags, and dumped the bags in a tributary of the Quachita River, along with the knives he used and all her possessions she had with her. Investigators tracked Holland's car on traffic cameras in the area where Turner's body was found. It was captured on camera 4 days before her remains were discovered. Investigators say blood was found in his apartment, including on a mattress and on the floor. I mean, what is going on here? We gotta be careful as to who we end up dating, whether it's online or in person. We gotta be extra careful. We gotta be. We already have one 19-year-old. We have a 19-year-old deceased because of a first date. Now this one is 23. They're supposed to be in some kind of a relationship, and now that's gone. Gotta be careful. Gotta be careful. Next up, a substitute teacher arrested after throwing punches at a student. And we have the video. Okay, so this is out of Las Vegas. Video taken at Valley High School on Thursday showed an altercation that led to the arrest of a substitute teacher. 27-year-old Raekwon Smith was arrested and booked into the Clark County Detention Center for battery with substantial bodily harm and disturbance of school. The Clark County School District, that was according to an announcement from the Clark County School District Police Department. Sources told Scripps News Las Vegas the student is recovering at a local hospital after the fight. The video of the altercation showed Smith and the student throwing punches at one another before the student was knocked to the ground. Alright, so what I'm going to do with this, first off, I am going to really cover myself. I'm going to start with this trigger warning. Then I'm going to hit the copyright disclaimer. Okay, now that that's covered, what you're about to see is everything that took place between teacher and student at Valley High School. The article continues saying that Andrew Aceves, a junior at Valley High School, saw the fight when it happened. I saw a teacher fighting a student and I'm like, wow, Aceves said. And then the teacher was just standing over him, just slapping him, saying stuff to him. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Police noted that Smith had been employed with CCSD since November 2023. In light of his arrest, Smith will be removed from CCSD's substitute pool and is no longer eligible to serve as a substitute in the district. Valley High School Principal Kimberly Perry Carter sent parents the following note. As always, we want to keep you informed of important issues happening within our school community. We are aware of an altercation involving a staff member and a student. The information is preliminary, however. Please note that CCSD PD is investigating the matter. Once we have information to share, we will be sure to update our community. As always, if you have any questions or concern about your child, please contact the school at 702-799-5450. CCSD sent Scripps News Las Vegas the following statement saying additional information will be provided regarding the investigation once it becomes available. It's saying CCSD does not tolerate violence of any kind. Violence in any form is unacceptable and it goes against the fundamental principles of education and respect. Any altercation between a teacher and student is thoroughly investigated and appropriate disciplinary action is taken. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but that's the last thing a teacher needs to be doing. Getting into a physical scrap with a student. Come on, you know better than that. You know full blown better than that. Okay, we've got some huge news in the Chad Daybell trial. I don't know what I don't know exactly how much this is gonna help his case or not, but we come to find out that one of his defense attorneys is actually the owner of Chad's home. Oh, this is going to take a while too, but I can go ahead and tell you this. During a contentious cross-examination on Friday, one of the witnesses in Chad Daybell's murder trial revealed that his defense attorney now owns the property where two of the victims' bodies were found buried. Daybell is charged with the murders of his first wife, Tammy, and his second wife's two youngest children, J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. The children's bodies were found buried on his property in Fremont, Idaho in June 2020. Chad's second wife, Lori Vallow Daybell, was already convicted on similar charges and was sentenced to multiple life terms. This is something that is something I never heard about before. A defense attorney buying the very property where two of the murder victims were found, and they belong to your client. All I can say, let me go ahead back to. I'll tell you what. This was the back and forth that I can read to you, and I'll let you be the judge on this. Pryor. Let's see. This is defense attorney John Pryor. You're familiar with Chad Daybell's house, right? Ron Arnold. No, I have never been inside that house. I've been in the foyer. They have a breezeway or an entryway, and that's as far as I've ever been in that house. Pryor. Did you familiarize yourself with the property surrounding that house? Arnold. When we talked about splitting the property, it was about acreage, not about the house or floor plan or those kinds of things. Pryor. So the acreage that you're talking about, do you have any recollection of how much acreage we're talking that surrounds Chad's house? Arnold. You own it. How many acres is it? Pryor. Well, I don't know. Then Pryor asked for a sidebar, after which Judge Stephen Boyce instructed the jurors to disregard Arnold's last statement and not to discuss the topic or speculate about it in deliberations. Judge Boyce additionally admonished Arnold to stay away from the topic during future questioning. Woo. Just because they've been admonished not to talk about it doesn't mean it won't sit on their minds. All right. Next up, I'm gonna keep track of the Daybell trial, and I will bring up any information leading to a verdict watch and a possible verdict when that time comes. Right now, I want to start off with a case that has been on my mind all week, and it's only been a couple days. We're going to start with the tragic story of forever 13-year-old Madeline Soto.
Madeline Soto had just turned 13. She had just celebrated her birthday at a family party. But the following morning, she never made it to school. Her mother reported her missing on February 26th. The search began and ended when she was found dead on the side of the road. That was almost 2 months ago. And now tonight, huge breaking news.
Stephen Stearns has been indicted by the grand jury on first-degree murder.
Stephen Stearns, the boyfriend of Madeline's mother, has now been charged with her murder. The same man who's been indicted for allegedly sexually abusing and photographing his abuse of Madeline. Tonight, we'll take a look at all the new details revealed by law enforcement and look at the role of her mother in the prosecution of this case as we continue our investigation into the tragic life and death of Madeline Soto.
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you for joining us tonight. Big news that hit late this afternoon. Big news in the big story we've been covering. We're talking about Madeline Soto and what her story is tragic. Period. I mean, tragic. Capital T, however you want to say it. And you think about her life and what she endured during her life. Being a victim of sex abuse, not being protected. Writing to her friend, and this is no accident, writing to her friend, when I turn 13, I want to go live in the woods. Because home was not a safe place for her. She knew home was not a safe place for her. She understood. And now she was getting older, and she was getting to the point, and I think she was realizing everything that was going on in her life, and it just wasn't right. And it wasn't right, and she was looking for a way out. But not this way. Not this way. The allegations against Madeline's mother's boyfriend are just vile. What he's accused of doing. You know, we throw around that term, worst of the worst, and it can come in different forms. And we see it here on Court TV in different forms. Think about this. Since she was 8 years old, prosecutors say, he's abusing her and memorializing this abuse with videos and photographs on his phone. And that he's just charged with the stuff that they found on his phone. What else could have potentially been happening to this child? And now today, the murder. So you look at Madeline's life, all right? Her mom and dad are never together, right? So she's with her mom. And sometimes that can be great. You know, that mother-daughter bond. You know, you and I together, we'll do it. I'm going to do everything for you. And yeah, dad is in the picture. Maybe he's not right around the corner, but he's in the picture and is writing and calling and all those other things, right? And then this creepy man enters your world. A man who targets your mother so he can have access to you. That's what the allegations are here. Make no mistake about it. But that then brings us back to mom. What about mom here? What about mom? To me, this is still the unanswered question about what she is thinking about this, what she thinks about the man accused of molesting her daughter, abusing her daughter. I mean, could she possibly be thinking that he's been wrongfully accused of that? They charged him because it's on his phone. On his phone. So I can't imagine that she could in any way be supporting this man, but we don't know. We haven't heard from her. I mean, she could have had a mental breakdown for all we know. It's a lot to handle here. It's a lot. But what will her role be in all of this? Because you're proving a case against this man, the number one witness. If I'm in the jury box, who do I want to hear from? I want to hear from her. You know the accused, and you certainly know the victim. What can you tell us about what was going on in that house? But we're not sure. We're not sure.
what her role is going to be in all this yet. Hopefully we'll find out at some point, maybe at a probable cause preliminary hearing, pretrial motions. Maybe she'll make a statement. Maybe she has an attorney who will make a statement. Maybe a family member will come out and say something, but we haven't heard anything. And at the end of the day, let's not forget where we are. We're down in Central Florida, okay? We've covered big cases before. Big cases that seemed pretty straightforward. Cases that seemed to have a lot of evidence involving the death of a little girl. So the question tonight is, will she get justice? Will Madeline get justice? Which means the truth comes out inside that courtroom and the jury tells us what happened. Because that's not a guarantee. It's never a guarantee. No matter what you think now, no matter what I think now, no matter how you think the evidence is, until a jury comes back with a verdict, everything's on the table. Anything can happen. So let's get into this indictment. Let me show you the words from the paper, because it's powerful. I mean, to be indicted for murder. The grand jurors of the county of Osceola do present that Stephen Michael Stearns, on or between the 25th day of February 2024 and the 27th day of February 2024, did, in violation of Florida Statute 782.04, subsection 1A1, from a premeditated design to effect the death of Madeline Soto, a human being, unlawfully kill Madeline Soto. So we heard from the state attorney who will be in charge of the prosecution of this case, whether he does it himself or has one of his prosecutors do it. It's likely the case. Spoke today. Let's take a listen.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming. Today, the Kissimmee Police Chief and myself are here to provide an update on the death investigation on 13-year-old Madeline Soto, who was reported missing back on February 26th of this year and discovered dead 4 days later. I know the community and the media have been anxious for us to give an update on this case, and this is an opportunity for us to do that. For the last 7 weeks, 7.5 weeks actually, the Kissimmee Police Department and my office have been working closely to go over every piece of evidence that we could gather in this case. It was a voluminous and a lot of evidence to get through during that time, but we were successful in getting through it and making sure that we were able to provide the best case we could. Today we're announcing that Stephen Stearns has been indicted by the grand jury on first-degree murder for the killing of Madeline Soto. We presented the case to the grand jury. They returned an indictment earlier today. The death penalty in this case, we have not decided to what decision we're going to make in that case. We're going to continue those discussions going forward, and we'll let you know again when we make that decision as to whether we're going to see the death penalty in this case. I want to thank the grand jury for their hard work and their efforts in making sure that we're making this first step in seeking justice for Madeline Soto, for her family, and so the community can have closure in this case.
Let's bring in our guest. Joining me tonight in Orlando, Florida, WFTV investigative reporter on top of the story from the beginning, Shannon Butler. Also in Orlando, Florida, you recognize him, retired judge of the 9th Judicial Circuit, the Honorable Belvin Perry. And finally, in Portland, Oregon, true crime live streamer Gray Hughes, who you can find on YouTube at Gray Hughes Investigates. He's been investigating this case as well. Great to see everyone tonight. Shannon, I'm going to start with you. You were there at the press conference today. Describe the moment, who was there, and what you learned.
Well, there was a lot of media. Obviously, we had been waiting for this to come down for quite a while. We weren't sure that it was going to come so soon. We knew that the state attorney had a meeting with KPD, I think it was last week, but they weren't ready to file these charges. They had to send it to a grand jury. That grand jury then indicting you look at that panel up there, that was the state attorney. That was also the head of homicide at the state attorney's office. And then one of the other prosecutors down there in Osceola County, along with the police chief. All of them have been in quite a lot of conversations about how to get to this point, how to do what they did today, is charge Stephen Stearns with murder.
Any indication, because as you mentioned off the top, we've been waiting some time, any information about what took this amount of time to get to, and does any of it include figuring out the cause of death?
Yeah, so there's a few things here. Sources have told me there were multiple people inside that house on Sunday night. We're talking about Sunday night right after Madeline Soto's birthday party, all of that video that you've seen in those pictures of her birthday party. There were multiple people inside that home. So investigators had to go back and interview all of those folks. We know it was Stephen Stearns. We know it was Madeline Soto. We know it was Jen Soto, but there were a couple of other family members there. So one, they had to go back and do all of those interviews. We don't know if any of that information was helpful in them trying to pinpoint and get where they got today. But that was one issue. Then they were also concerned about doing this too quickly. That speedy trial starts, and they had so much information to still go through that they really wanted to take their time. And I know that KPD, the Kissimmee Police Department, had met with the state attorney several times, and they're like, you're just not there yet. You're just not there. We need a couple of more things. And that seems to be enough. If you look at that indictment and the paperwork, it says that they indicted him based on the fact that he allegedly tried to hide that body. You've seen the video, or you've seen some video, but we know that there are multiple videos showing him with Madeline Soto after she died. There is indication now that she possibly was killed right after her birthday party. So if you look at that, Vinny, that would have been Sunday night, not Monday morning. If you remember, they said that she was dropped off at school. Sources have told me they believe at this point that she was killed possibly overnight. That would be Sunday night. And that is an important time frame, because if you listen to the statements that she was dropped off at school, that she got ready for school, all of those things that both Stephen Stearns and Jen Soto have said would long be not true if she was in fact killed the night before.
Yeah, Jen Soto was very specific about speaking with her and seeing her getting dressed for school at 8 a.m. That's a huge problem. That's a huge problem. All right, Judge Belvin Perry, great to see you tonight. Let me start here. This guy hasn't shown his face, won't show up in the courtroom, keeps waiving every appearance. I just covered a trial up in New Hampshire where a man who murdered his daughter never showed up in court, finally ordered to show up for his sentencing. Is it possible that this man can waive every appearance?
The answer to that is no, Vinny. He's going to have to be brought before the bar of justice, and the judge has the authority to order that he appear in court for those proceedings. I suspect that this man will be ordered at the appropriate time, other than arraignment, to be there at scheduled court appearances. Because if they let him bypass those appearances, he's going to turn around and use that as an avenue of appeal.
Now, I want to ask you about speedy trial down in Florida, Judge. How does that work if this defense team says, hey, we want this done as quickly as possible? How quick are we talking about?
In Florida, he has a right to come to trial within 180 days of his arrest. I do not suspect that they want a speedy trial in this particular case. Due to the length of investigation, the multiple crime scenes, and we don't even know all the forensics that are out there, they're going to need time to go through all of that, and they're going to need time to develop whatever defenses they have that they can produce. The standard ones would be, quote, insanity, which there's no evidence at this point to show that he was legally insane, or some other person did it. So I do not suspect that this trial will go within the next 2 years.
Gray Hughes, covering the investigation here It's like we were waiting for this moment to happen. Everything pointed in that direction. But what are your thoughts tonight about what Shannon is reporting, that it's possible that she was dead the night before? What does that mean to you?
Well, I'm glad Shannon brought that up earlier. The 25th at night, you remember a while back we had that Telegram post that was at 11:49. Stephen Stearns is using Telegram at 11:49. And now we learned that site is used by child predators often and is sort of an up-and-coming site that they're using. And so it makes you wonder, what was he doing at 11:49 on Telegram if they believe that she could have possibly died the night before? It's also possible that she came home after the party and then, maybe Jen saw her. There's some theories out there that, like, maybe he said, hey, let me take her out for some ice cream or something. And she goes to sleep and she never actually comes home again. And Jen goes to sleep. I mean, we don't really know what the actual story is, but, Jennifer, does she know more? I don't know. I mean, I could see Stephen Stearns being one of those controlling type people that absolutely, she trusted, and he would always have a really good explanation for everything. The 8 a.m, when she says that she saw Madeline getting ready at 8 a.m, we already knew that isn't a true statement, because he was Stephen was already throwing the backpack and laptop in the garbage at the trash at 7:35, right? So that's likely that Madeline isn't even alive at this point. So, when Jen said that, I could easily see him saying, listen, I was the one that took her to school. You were still sleeping, you'll look bad. So just tell him that you saw Madeline at 8, right? You could just see him being like this. Like he guilted her into telling the lie that she saw Madeline at 8 a.m. That's my opinion.
Yeah, how is she going to explain it unless she's connected? Now, Shannon, in terms of what's next, in terms of an appearance in court, scheduled, what do we expect? When do we expect it?
Well, he has to make a first appearance on these murder charges, and then he'll be arraigned later. But we do expect more information to be uploaded before that happens. There are still a lot of details that we need to see. It wasn't grand jury indictment. A lot of that is sealed, but we do know that some of that information is forthcoming, and we don't know what that will mean in this case. But he will make a court appearance if he shows up. There was some indication from the state attorney today that going forward, he will have to appear in court because he hasn't. They've made it very clear that they intend to make sure that the judge requires him to be in court, but we'll see.
Judge, I wanted to ask you about 2 cases now. So you've got all these charges involving the sexual abuse, and now you've got the murder charges. What does that mean? Is it possible they could be combined and put in front of the same jury, or are we on 2 tracks for 2 different trials here?
They need to be on track for 2 different trials, and this is the reason why. These things predate the date of the homicide. One of the aggravating factors would be he has previously been convicted of a felony involving violence, i.e., the possibility of 8 counts of sexual battery upon a child. So those cases should go first, and then you will have the murder case teed up, so they would have those particular convictions to use as aggravating factors if they choose to seek the death penalty.
Oh, I think they will. I think they will, but that makes a lot of sense. Okay, great news. All our guests are staying with us. When we come back, we're going to shift the focus more onto Jen Soto. What about Mom? Plus, coming up next hour.
I'm going to go ahead and shift that focus to Jen Soto right now. The question that arrives on this, well, where is she Where does she come in? Will she be a witness or co-defendant?
I'm Vinny Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. Great to have you with us. And there was big breaking news yesterday. We're going to follow up now because we need to. It's the story of Madeline Soto. Madeline Soto just turned 13. Relatives hosted a party for her. Should have been an amazing day. Should have been an amazing day. When you're a child and you become a teenager, that is like a badge of honor. You wear it. You've been looking forward to it. I'm growing up. Because you know, when we're small, all we want to do is grow up. And this is step one. You become a teenager. But for Madeline Soto, that celebration was her last day on earth. Now, that's not her father there. Make no mistake, that's not her father. That's her mother. But the man on the right side of the screen with the shades hiding his eyes, that's Stephen Stearns. He's the one who's been accused of her murder. He's the one who's been accused of sexually abusing her. He's the one accused of having all these images on his phone of himself abusing her. Hundreds of these images. And that was the monster that was in her life. Let's take a listen to the state attorney.
Today, we're announcing that Stephen Stearns has been indicted by the grand jury on first-degree murder for the killing of Madeline Soto. We presented the case to the grand jury. They returned an indictment earlier today. The death penalty in this case, we have not decided to what decision we're going to make in that case. We're going to continue those discussions going forward, and we'll let you know again when we make that decision as to whether we're going to seek the death penalty in this case.
All right, so let's walk through again what happened and what we know and the questions that we have about the timeline here. And we begin with this birthday party. Again, it's her 13th birthday party. It's a Sunday. It's at a relative's home. She's posing for pictures. She's got a pretty dress on. They decorated the home a little bit. She's running around outside also, celebrating the day. The cake is right in front of her. Now, Stephen Stearns, the man accused of murdering her and sexually abusing her, when Madeline was a missing child, here's what he said about the 13th birthday party.
She had a happy weekend. She just turned 13. She had her 13th birthday party. She was happy that we were all together here, and she's just very happy. She was a happy kid. She's very sweet. She's a very sweet girl.
I don't know how happy she was. Telling her friends she wanted to go live in the woods when she was 13. She's been allegedly sexually abused since the age of 8. I don't know how happy she was. Now, here's Jen Soto, again speaking to WFTV, talking about the last time that mom spoke to her daughter, Madeline.
What was the last thing, I guess, the conversation that you two had, you and your daughter?
We spoke about her birthday party. She had a birthday party on Sunday. She had a great time. I couldn't make it because I was working. But she had an amazing time. She was so happy with all her gifts. I told her good night, and yeah, that was it.
So, mom says she told her good night, right? Okay, now let's go to after the party. So it's Sunday night now. The party is over. What is Stephen Stearns doing? Well, check out what Gray Hughes Investigates dug up. He's on the app Telegram at 11:49 p.m. that night. Telegram. This is an app that you use where you can communicate with people, but you don't know where they are. You can send things. Everything's encrypted. It's very difficult to track things down. Information that's exchanged, and groups start to form. And some groups form that do things that you're not allowed to do out in the open, like child predators, child pornography, things like that. Now, I want you to take a close listen to Shannon Butler from WFTV, investigative reporter. I've known her over 20 years. She knows everybody down in Orlando. What she told us last night about the time that Madeline was murdered. What time of day or night was it? Take a listen.
There is indication now that she possibly was killed right after her birthday party. So if you look at that, Vinny, that would have been Sunday night, not Monday morning. Sources have told me they believe at this point that she was killed possibly overnight. That would be Sunday night.
That changes everything. If those sources are correct, that changes everything here. If she's murdered after the party Sunday night, let's take a listen to the way, or a look at how Jen Soto mom and Stephen Stearns describe what happened the following morning, Monday morning after the Sunday night party. Here's what they say. We begin a WFTV report. Jen saw Madeline that morning. Documents show that the girl's mother told deputies February 26th that she saw her daughter getting dressed for school at 8 a.m. Monday. And then Stearns took her to school. Take a listen to more of Jen Soto speaking to WFTV.
We dropped her off at school, close to school. She wanted to walk the rest of the way. She was spotted walking by the church, by the middle school, on the cameras. We saw her hang out in the parking lot for a little bit and then get up and leave. They didn't see a vehicle or anything else. They just saw her walk away around 9 a.m. heading towards school, but she never made it.
This is another mystery, is this so-called grainy video from the church parking lot. But this has her hanging out in the parking lot. Take a listen to what Stephen Stearns says about what happened when he dropped her off. Here he is speaking to WFTV.
I dropped her off early. I could have waited longer. She looked okay. She was walking towards the school when I saw her. It was like any other day, so I went on with my day. The church across the street had some cameras, and they mentioned seeing her waiting around in the parking lot for a while before moving on, and that was it. But it was grainy footage and not much else.
Well, both of those can't be true. You can't be waiting in the parking lot and walking towards the school at the same time, right? He said she started walking towards the school. And he also said it was like any other day, like he always drops her off. Well, on February 28th, Madeline Soto's grandmother spoke to Telemundo 31 Orlando. And she confirmed Madeline was caught on camera, but also says Stearns dropping her off was unusual, not normal. Take a listen.
Pero mi hija trabajó la noche anterior, el domingo, y parece que se levantó muy cansada y le dijo al novio que se la trajera.
Sí, que no era parte de la rutina que el novio llevara frecuentemente.
No, siempre mi hija. Y en las cámaras de la iglesia ven que hay una niña con un suéter verde, donde ella se sienta en el parqueadero un rato y unos minutos después se levanta y coge hacia la escuela. Hasta ahí se sabe de ella.
So that's their version of what happened that morning, right? That's what they were saying. That's what they told investigators. That's what they told the world and the community as they're searching for this little girl. Well, here's what law enforcement is saying about all this. Take a listen to what the Orange County Sheriff's Department had to say about some video they found near the dumpster in the subdivision complex, gated complex, where they live.
We have video evidence that shows Stephen Stearns discarding items in a dumpster in that apartment complex in Kissimmee at 7:35 on Monday, February 26. Detectives later recovered Madeline's backpack and her school-issued laptop from that dumpster.
7:35 at the dumpster. Where is he at 8:10? Take a look. A license plate reader captured Stephen's vehicle with the Florida tag JYLL82, driving away from the school at 8:10. Driving away from the school at 8:10. Now, take a listen to what they see at 8:19, 9 minutes after he's driving away from the school.
Stephen Stearns moved her body in the early morning hours on that day. At 8:19, we have evidence that shows Stephen Stearns returning to the complex, and Madeline was visible in that vehicle. We believe she was already dead at that time.
Okay, let's try to break some of this down, put some of these pieces together and figure out what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. Let me bring in my special guest in Portland, Oregon, podcaster Gray Hughes of Gray Hughes Investigates on YouTube. Gray, thanks so much for joining us again tonight. I want to start with that 11:49 telegram. From your perspective, what's the significance of that in light of what Shannon Butler's sources are telling her, that Madeline may have been murdered that night, not the following morning?
Well, you look at, you explained it well earlier about telegram, and you look at that and you just think to yourself, if she died that night, what is he doing on there? And even if it was the next day, it's so close to that time, early in the morning, you wonder what he was doing. A lot of these predators take images of various events that, I don't want to, even a snuff film sometimes. I mean, it's actually very common. I mean, it's very sought after by some of these wackos. So, I mean, we don't know what he was filming and what he was doing on telegram, but it's very ominous, the timing of it, when you just look at it. I don't know. I mean, I can't really see another reason why it'd be on there that late, and it's not even a really well-known app either, right? I mean, we just kind of heard about it more recently, but predators have heard about it for a while. It's used for a lot of other things too, so I don't want to completely disparage the app altogether, but
it's like anything else. You have this great technology, can be used for great things and very positive things, but it can also go in the other direction, and the people who go the other direction usually find it first, somehow, some way, and I think that's part of what has happened here. The videos, the one thing that we haven't heard from law enforcement, the one piece, are the videos of him leaving the complex. Right? They talk about him coming back at 8:19. They talk about him near the dumpster at 7:35, which is close to the back exit. But we don't hear about that. My guess is they probably have things, but just maybe haven't told us about it. But to me, that will put some more pieces together here of that morning.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely, people like us, we try to put the pins in order and the timing and map it all out. And what we're missing is at 7:35, did he come back to the complex to get the backpack and laptop and then put it in the dumpster and then go back out to where perhaps Madeline's body was, and then later he comes back with her? We don't know if he was actually stayed overnight at Jennifer's home. He could have been somewhere else, but he knew that he was supposed to take her to school. So therefore, he needs to make it look like her backpack and laptop aren't at home, because she would have needed those to go to school. So he realizes, oh yeah, I'll go there early to the house and I'll pick those up and I'll just throw them in the dumpster because she's not even alive right now. But I need to take care of that portion, because if he took her to school, the question would be, well, how come the laptop and backpack are still sitting at her home? She would need that for school. So
you can almost see someone planning this out, right? Because, okay, if the murder happens at night, now you have hours to try to figure out, okay, what am I going to do? How do we handle this situation? Whether it's him alone or whether or not Jen knows, we don't know. She hasn't been charged. She hasn't been named as a suspect. But you can see the planning here. All right, we're gonna make it look like she went to school, like I dropped her off at school. The other thing that's odd about it, though, are the hours that he chose, because school doesn't start till like 9:30. Why would you drop a child off an hour before school? And maybe in his mind, he's thinking, if it's early, there's less people there, no one's going to see me. I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, they both said that he was called to pick her up, right? So that means he's somewhere else to go pick her up at home. So how does that fit in too, right? So that's why it makes it seem like, it almost feels like she stayed the night, Madeline, somewhere else with Stephen Stearns. This is just a theory. And then, it was like she was too tired. He goes, hey, how about I'll just take care of her tonight? And, they've known each other for 9 years, so she probably trusted him like that. And perhaps he groomed Madeline to not say anything about all the different times he assaulted her. I mean, he took over 400 photographs. I mean, it's absolutely insane. So maybe he drove over there that morning to get the laptop and backpack and came in and said, oh, she's, even if Jen had woke up, he could have just said, she's in the car. I'm just getting her backpack and notebook, right? Or, laptop, and then picks it up, throws it into the dumpster, and then retrieves her somewhere. But what's weird is, why does he bring her back again?
That's the strange one, right? At 8:19, police are very clear, or the sheriff is very clear that there's video coming back to the complex, and she appears to not be alive at that moment. So if you're near the school around 8:10 or so, or driving away from the school at 8:10, why are you coming back at 8:19? And if he comes back, he's got to leave again, right? So there should be video of that as well, because her body's not found at home. It's found like more than 20 miles away in St. Cloud.
And what did he have her in the car in the parking lot for 4 hours? Because then he drove away, and I think it was 1:20 when the witness saw his car on the side of the road changing a tire. So where was she during that time? I mean, I don't think he would have dared at 8:19 to take her out of the vehicle and bring her into the house.
No.
That would be crazy, right? So you would think that she just sat in that car. Anybody maybe covered her with a blanket, but she was visible when she came in from a camera that law enforcement looked at. I mean, they could see her in there, and they don't believe she was alive in that image.
Unreal. Yeah. Still putting the pieces together. Gray Hughes, great to have you on the program. Gray Hughes Investigates, live streaming on YouTube. Make sure you check it out, folks. Make sure you subscribe to it as well, so you know when he's on the air doing stuff. Thanks so much, Gray.
The severed leg has been preliminarily identified as belonging to Miss Robinson.
Who would do something like this?
All coming up next for you, plus much more right here on Opening Statements. Good Monday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm your host, Julie Grant. We hope you had a great weekend, and guess what? We've got a great show planned for you to start off your work week. Just like in an actual trial here on this show, we get you all primed and ready to go for what's ahead in court. It's morning time. We get warmed up together. So right now, go ahead and grab that cup of coffee because it's time for my opening statement. Why? Why was Sade Robinson murdered and dismembered? Her case is one of the most stunning and sickening cases I have seen in recent years. It has shaken the people of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, shaken me and shaken you as well. Who would want to harm such a beautiful person? She was young, she was innocent, she was unsuspecting. She was just looking for love, hopeful for her future, and being her vivacious self when she met the person who would end her life. Is that person the man who's been charged, 33-year-old Maxwell Anderson? That we don't know. Only time and evidence will tell. But what we do know is that Sade Robinson's death has devastated her family and everyone who loved her. And it's devastated the Anderson family too. And that's something that's on my mind this morning. We're all responsible for our own actions, morally and legally, right? When a person commits a murder, the devastation reaches far beyond the victim who is killed and their family and friends. Yes, of course, they are the most important victims, yes. And with that being said, it's also important to realize how many other people beyond them are affected in a homicide case. And that includes the innocent family of the murderer too. I've seen it many times in the courtroom. Think about it. Their lives are changed forever as well. And there are countless good people out there who have a family member who's done something heinous. I've seen it play out before in court, and it is a devastating situation for all. They are traumatized as well as the victim's family members, just in a different way. They're coping with something a bit different. And they're often shunned for it and mistreated for it, and that's not right. They aren't the ones responsible. They've been victimized in a sense too. I've seen it before, as I said, and I'm thinking about it this morning with the Anderson family publicly expressing their condolences and their devastation to the Robinsons family. And as I'm thinking about that, I want to repeat and be very clear. The biggest victims are, of course, Sade Robinson's family and Sade Robinson's loved ones. Her mother and her father should not have to bury their beautiful daughter. Sade's little sister shouldn't have to grow up without Sade as her protector and as her example. Sade Robinson deserved to live. And as her family members and her loved ones are going through this terrible process to get justice, we can only hope that they're able to find the strength to keep moving forward without their beloved Sade. May they get justice for her murder, and may they be able to cope with their trauma. And may the Anderson family and other families like theirs be able to cope with their trauma as well. That's my opening statement on this Monday morning. Let me
I have to agree to the extent of not only is the family of the victim traumatized, but it's the accused family that's being traumatized as well because of the fact of they'll look at that family and say that, keep constantly reminding them that your son did this, and it's always going to be a reminder of what they did, what that person did, and how just how gruesome it was, and And it's always going to be a reminder if that person is going to be behind bars for the rest of their life. Speaking of another traumatized victim, brings me to the next opening statement by Julie. Colby Ryan. Julie says that this young man was betrayed by his own mother. You'll be surprised as to who his mother was in Julie's opening statement.
Actual opening statements at trial. Kind of. The whole premise is we get you all primed and ready to go for the court day ahead on Court TV Live. But it's morning time, so we have coffee and court together and get all warmed up for the day ahead. So right now, do me a favor, go ahead, grab that cup of coffee because it's time now for my opening statement. Betrayal never comes from your enemies. It comes from people you love. That's why it is so incredibly hurtful. And I'm thinking about betrayal this morning as I think about Colby Ryan on the witness stand, talking about his mother, Lori Vallow, and how she lied to him about his siblings, JJ and Tylee. Colby has been betrayed by his own mother. Think about that. Doesn't get any worse than that. The woman who brought him into this world murdered his siblings. Watching him identify Tylee and JJ when those beautiful pictures of them were shown to the jury was heartbreaking. We could see Colby getting choked up because he loved them so much. They were innocent, and their mother betrayed them too. Whether they knew of the betrayal, like Colby knew, is unlikely, right? And we can really only hope and pray that they didn't realize that their mother was their killer. And we can only hope and pray that they didn't suffer in pain. We're thinking about these things as we're watching the trial of Chad Daybell, right? But think about this. For Colby Ryan, this is what he thinks about every single day of his life. So let's keep him in our hearts, our thoughts, and our prayers as he goes through his life without his younger siblings, without Charles Vallow, and without the mother who so badly betrayed him. That's my opening statement on this.
That sounds like the age-old reminder about keeping your friends close and your enemies closer. Doesn't always sound like just for friends too. It amazes me how something like this could happen, and Lori Vallow Daybell smirks and smiles like she's done nothing, yet she's convicted of such a heinous crime. But at least she stood in front of a judge and a jury and took her legal whooping like a woman. Unlike Adam Montgomery, and unlike this other coward that Julie's going to address in this opening statement.
It's coffee and court, so right now, go ahead and grab that cup of coffee because it's time for my opening statement.
And I couldn't have said that better myself. Couldn't have said it any better. Someone has to pay. And I pray to God Stephen Stearns will get everything he's got coming to him. And if Jennifer Soto happens to be a defendant in the case too, I hope she gets what's coming to her as well. And that's going to wrap everything up for Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. I want to thank you all for joining me on this Saturday night. This Saturday night's main event. This is my first time I get to do this, and I want to know from you if this should be a thing. Doing a Saturday night live stream like this. Drop me a line. You can get me on Facebook at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. On X at EKB316 in all caps. Here on YouTube at Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. On Instagram, EKB316. That's in lowercase this time. On TikTok, I will have a link in my bio for this edition of Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. You can catch it at King of Hearts 316 2021. You can email me at kingofhearts316_09 at outlook.com. And again, this is where my huge thank you comes in for all the tips to allow me to present this edition of Bethea'S Byte Reloaded. If you enjoy it, you can drop me a tip to here on PayPal, PayPal.me EKB316, Cash App $EKB316, or Venmo EB the Last Outlaw. Nothing's obligated, but it's always appreciated, and I thank you all for helping me out to bring this to you. And as I've said many times, this is the drama-free true crime destination. This is your home for news without the drama, where your opinions matter, lively debates are encouraged, your voice is heard, and above all else, justice is served. You guys, I appreciate you like you wouldn't believe. I love you to the moon and back. You the ones that keep this thing up and running. So let's keep this. So we keep it going. Let's do this again. Come next week, same time, same place. You know what to do. I'm Ernest Bethea, the Last Outlaw. This is Bethea'S Byte Reloaded, the drama-free true crime destination on a cool Oregon Saturday night. I look forward to doing this with you again. Until then, you guys know what to do, right? Bite this. Thanks for watching and joining me here at the drama-free true crime destination. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, and drop me a comment on this video. And be sure to follow Bethea'S Byte Reloaded all over social media. This is Bethea'S Byte, and it's reloaded.